We'd like to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's City Board meeting. This is meeting number 17 of the calendar year for the Hot Springs City Board, meeting here the first and third Tuesday night of every month, plus perhaps some special meetings. We'll begin the meeting tonight with an invocation by Pastor John Byer, and I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Gracious Father in heaven, we give you thanks and praise for the world that you have made, the gift of life, for this new day that you have made, and the promise of all that is yet to come. We thank you for the gift of salvation through your Son, and the promise of life forever with you in heaven. We thank you for this great land that we live in, where we're free to come together and live in the freedoms that we enjoy as citizens of this great land. We thank you for this community, this place we call home, such a wonderful place to live and to live together as your people in this place. So we ask your blessing upon this board meeting. We thank you for those who serve us as board of directors, as our mayor, as those who work in our city offices. We thank you for our police, our fire, sheriff's department, all those who serve to help all the citizens of our land. We pray for the peace and prosperity of our city, that everything would bless all the citizens of this community. We pray for the health and healing of our community. We pray against this thing called COVID, and that we can once again walk in freedom of our health and enjoy this land that we live in. We pray for the salvation and revitalization and revival of our city, that people come alive in faith and love in you and for one another. And we pray that all things bring you praise and honor and glory. And so I invite you to come and lead us in this meeting for that purpose, that everything said and done brings you praise and honor and glory for the good of your kingdom in this place, for all people, and for the glory of your holy name. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Aaron Holliday.
Here.
Director Elaine Jones.
Here.
Director Marcia Dobbs-Smith.
Here.
Director Carol Weatherford.
Here.
Director Karen Garcia.
Here.
Director Steve Trusty.
Here.
Mayor Pat McCabe.
Here. We have some on Bill's borough is remote tonight, so it's not that he's absent, he's just not in his normal chair. So he'll be assisting in the meeting tonight. I like the fact that I look out and I see everybody wearing masks. I know that we mandate that here in City Hall, but I appreciate all your willingness to do so, and we hope that you do so elsewhere as well, not just here. So at this point in time, we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda items from the consent agenda to be placed on new business?
May I so move?
We got a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We got a second. Discussion?
Yes, I was going to, someone mentioned there's a large group here for the last item, if it could be moved up earlier in the agenda.
Can we move that to the first item under new business? Would that be what the directors would like?
Mayor, if you would like, you could move 13 before the old business. The old business will be quite lengthy.
Before when?
Before the old business, it would be a new item 9.
Put it after item 8.
When would old business be conducted then?
After item 13, which is being moved.
At the end toward the last item of the meeting?
We could do that as well, Your Honor, if you'd like.
Okay. Well, I know that there's people on that one too, so I guess we'll go a little bit maybe back and forth. We'll do 13 as right after number 8, and then we'll do 9 after 13. Is that what everybody would like?
That's fine. Yes, sir.
I move to amend accordingly.
So move to amend in
Second.
that manner. We got a motion to amend by Karen, or Director Garcia, and a second by Director Trustee. Any further discussion? So we're going to move 13 to the first action item after the consent agenda, and then we'll pick up with old business number 9, and then just continue on as the agenda is outlined. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Consider approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting of August 17th, 2021. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes as presented? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Director Trustee, seconded by Director Weatherford. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. We have a number of recognitions, proclamations this evening. I'll begin the first one with the Literacy Council, and those representing the Literacy Council, please come forward. You can come up to the podium, and I'll read it. City of Hot Springs Proclamation. Literacy is our most critical skill. Whereas literacy is the ability to read and write. More precisely, it is the ability to understand, evaluate, use, engage with written text to participate in society, to achieve one's goals, and to develop one's knowledge and potential. Literacy can mean the difference between a life well lived and a life of hardship. And whereas in the United States, more than 43 million adults struggle with literacy and cannot read, write, or do basic math. Additionally, 8.4 million adults fall below the level of basic literacy skills. Of the United States incarcerated individuals, 75% did not complete high school or can be classified as low literate, as 20 million immigrants are not proficient in speaking English, and whereas in Arkansas, 495,000 adults function at or below basic literacy skills, and 14.8% of adults do not have a high school diploma. And whereas 23% of Arkansans, nearly 500,000, are at or below the lowest literacy level, adults at this level range from being able to read, from only being able to read short text and perform simple tasks, to having the basic vocabulary and being functionally literate. And whereas 38% of Arkansans, over 800,000, are at or below level 2 of literacy, meaning that they are near proficiency, but still struggle with basic tasks, making life much more difficult. And whereas according to the 2018 program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, approximately 11,000 adults in Garland County struggle with low literacy. And whereas bringing all adults to the equivalent of the 6th grade reading level would generate an additional $2.2 trillion in annual income for the country. And whereas literacy impacts every aspect of adult life, adults with better literacy skills are more likely to read to their children, help with homework, be employed full-time in family supporting jobs, receive a higher income, manage their money more effectively, and are healthier and spend less on medical expenses. Vote, volunteer, access information about current events, and stay out of legal trouble. Now that I, Pat McCabe, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Literacy Month in Hot Springs, Arkansas. The witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city to be fixed on the 7th day of the year of our Lord, 2021. I'll present this to the Literacy Council.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You know, we talk about workforce development regularly in a number of forums here in Hot Springs in order to demonstrate to employers who are seeking a new location that, you know, we have a ready workforce. And the Literacy Council aids in that regard of of bringing people up that ladder of literacy, and we know that they were impacted, as many organizations were, social agencies that are charged with trying to help those who need assistance, that they were impacted by COVID just like everybody else, and their ability to reach out to people was lessened during that period of time. But they're making renewed efforts to move forward in this new environment, and I and the board of directors here support all their efforts, and because they are part of our community that will assist us in growing our community, oftentimes not on everybody's radar screen. But at the end of the day, as the proclamation states, that if we can increase literacy, we can increase their quality of life. So thank you for all you do. Thank you. Our next proclamation is for First Responders Appreciation Weekend. And I like those individuals supporting and promoting this activity. First Responders Appreciation Weekend. Whereas first responders of the city of Hot Springs and Garland County live, defend, heal, and save the lives of the people in our community. And whereas the first responders from the Hot Springs Police and Fire Departments, Ambulance Service, and local hospitals put themselves in harm's way to save lives. And whereas these heroes deserve our utmost respect and honor for the brave deeds they do every day in the service of our community. And whereas this year marks the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, in which 2,972 people lost their lives, including 343 first responders. And whereas the Hot Springs Knights of Columbus Council 6419 honors our local first responders annually with a complimentary breakfast and non-denominational prayer service in the memory of the lives lost on September 11, 2001. Now, therefore, I, Pat McKay, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors, do hereby proclaim September 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2021 as First Responders Weekend in Hot Springs, Arkansas. You witness wherever I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city to be affixed on this 7th day of September in the year of our Lord, 2021. And thank you so much for what you do in this area.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just give a little background first. So this is our 5th annual year to do this, but it's obviously a little bit special this year because this is the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, as the mayor just said. Everybody here, especially the Board of Directors, is invited to attend our prayer service, which is this Friday, September 10th, at St. Mary's Catholic Church, which is at the corner, or at the intersection, Whittington Park and Central Avenues, right across from the Math and Science School. I love the city of Hot Springs. It starts at 7:30, I love the city of Hot Springs, but I can't say I love it as much as our police officers and firefighters do, and all the rest of our EMTs, first responders in the hospitals. I don't love as much as them. They put their lives on the line daily to protect, heal, and save all of us. Whether it be them going into a fire and pulling people out, whether it be them administering a dose of Narcan to somebody who has overdosed, or whether it be them going into a domestic violence situation and saving a child's life. You never know. We owe these men and women a debt of gratitude, and they do not get the amount of respect they deserve. We every time you see a first responder, everybody at home, everybody here, tell them thank you for what they do for us, because they deserve our appreciation and respect. And I'd like to give another round of applause to our police officers and firefighters and first responders that we have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Our final recognition proclamation will be presented by Director Garcia, and it's Hispanic Heritage Month proclamation. And those representing Hispanic Heritage Month, please come forward. Thank you. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. City of Hot Springs Proclamation honoring the achievements of Hispanics in Hot Springs. Whereas throughout history, our city has been enriched by the storied past of all who called Hot Springs home. America's Hispanic community has woven unique threads into the diverse fabric of our city and played an essential role in shaping our character as a people of limitless possibilities. This month, let us honor their distinct heritage while reaffirming our commitment to enabling them to build a future bright with hope and opportunity for themselves, their families, in the city and country we love. And whereas Hispanics contribute to our nation's success in extraordinary ways, they strengthen the economy, serve in the military and government, attend schools across our community. They are the father who works 2 jobs to give his children a better life, the mother who ventures out to take a risk and start a business. They are the student, often the first in their family to go to college, who pursues their greatest aspiration through higher education. They are lawful, permanent residents who seek to naturalize and become citizens, and the business leaders whose loved ones have lived in the United States for generations. Each day we see the tremendous impact they have on our communities, and they reflect an enduring truth at the heart of our nation. No matter where you come from or where your roots are, with hard work and perseverance, you can make it in America. And whereas our shared ideals bind us as a city, the Hot Springs Hispanic community has the same dreams, values, trials, and triumphs of people in every corner of our city, and they show the same grit and determination that have carried Hot Springs community as a whole forward for centuries. And whereas the latest census data reflects a significant increase in the Hispanic population of Hot Springs, Arkansas during National Hispanic Heritage Month, let us renew our commitment to honoring the invaluable ways Hispanics contribute to our common goals, celebrating Hispanic culture, and working towards a stronger, more inclusive, and more prosperous society for all. Now, therefore, Pat McCabe, the mayor of the city of Hot Springs, and on behalf of the board of directors, does hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and calls upon all public officials, educators, librarians, and citizens to observe appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs this month. And we have representatives from Seis Puentes here, and I'm going to present this to them and let them introduce themselves.
Thank you. My name is Roberto Ortega, my wife Maricela Calleja. We've been part of this community. It's going to be 10 years this coming October, and this is a community that we love, that we've grown in, and that we are really happy to be part of. And we're really excited for this coming month and all the events and the events that the Hispanic community will be part of. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. At this time, we'll hear from our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow. He is remote tonight, so you have to look up at the screen.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Just a few things to share. Very happy to announce that the city's June sales tax revenue was 18.83%, higher than June of 2020. Our year-to-date total is up a little over 17.5%. Now, we did see a downward tick in August with school coming back into session, but I can tell you Labor Day looked like a summer weekend downtown from the number of people that were up and down on the sidewalk. But we're very proud to announce that our sales tax are not only holding their own, but they're doing very well. I want to talk a little bit about the Martin Luther King Expressway. You know, we have concerns almost annually of the condition of the expressway in terms of litter and the height of the grass. We were able to work with RDOT this year, and the City of Hot Springs was able to hire the vendor that the Arkansas Department of Transportation uses to add an additional mowing and litter collection this year. It came in at just a little over $15,000, but I think it was money well spent. That is the third mowing this year. RDOT, they basically program 3 mowings a year of the expressway. We came in and did a third one, and then the fourth one I believe is going to be in November, and that will be by RDOT. So, you know, we hear concerns. We wanted to make sure that we at least got one additional mowing in there. We plan to do that again in 2022. I think that's worked out really well, and it looks like 4 may be the optimal number of times. So we're pleased to get that underway, and want to thank Denny McFade for the work he did in getting that organized. Next, we'd like to talk about Hope Works. We haven't talked about Hope Works in a while. It continues to be a success, and this is our partnership with Jackson House and some of our workers through that organization. They're picking up litter on the main thoroughfares in the city, primarily the state highways. For the months of May through August of 2021, they've collected over 643 bags of litter for almost 4 tons of litter debris collected. The program continues to be success in other areas as well. We've helped 2 participants find employment in that given time, and we also had another that has been able to go back to school. So really, really pleased with the outcome of Hope Works, and glad to see that continuing. Earlier today, the police department recognized the 35th anniversary of Sergeant Wayne Warwick's end of watch with a Remembrance Ceremony. Sergeant Warwick was shot on the line of duty on July 24th, 1984. He did survive, but was left disabled and passed away on September 5th, 1986, from a blood clot that resulted from his original injuries. Really appreciate the remembrance at the police department today. Our love and support continues to go out to the Warwick family for their loss and the sacrifice that they've made for our community. So really want to recognize them and again thank them so much for that sacrifice. And then finally, you know, we've been tasked with a really difficult assignment when it comes to districting and redistricting based on the census numbers. We've had 2 individuals that have worked on this working map. That's our city clerk, Carmony Morrissey, and our GIS analyst, Mary Donaldson, who's worked on not only 2021, but also 2011's census maps. It's a very arduous task. There is a tremendous amount of thought that goes into the way these census blocks work. We've come to a working map that has caused some angst within our board, I believe. I've heard comments, but I just want to assure the board that we did that in a vacuum. There was no outside input that we entertained as we developed those maps. Both Ms. Morrissey and Ms. Donaldson did a very good job. That was then reviewed by our Deputy City Manager Spicer, our City Attorney Albright, and myself. There was just not a lot of options when you look at the guidelines and the census blocks and the way that redistricting has to take place. With that being said, that is really staff's portion of that. This is a board of directors map. It's a board of directors responsibility for the redistricting. Our goal is to get you to a working place, a working spot, which I think this map that we've developed will do. Again, it's unofficial. It's a working document. We will be presenting that to the board at a work session next Tuesday. We hope to have the capabilities of looking at some census blocks that day with Ms. Donaldson to be able to to show how the maps were drawn, how the redistricting works, the guidelines, the seminars that Ms. Marcy attended, and what the ultimate guidelines were as they drew these particular maps. But also the way census blocks. You may have a census block that's very small but has a large number of residents, and then you may have a large census block that have 5. So it's there's a lot of movement, and when you move in one area, it affects another area. We also have a minority district, and that's really one of the first places that we work, is to make sure that we continue to have that minority district that's over 51%, as well as hitting our targets. Each one of the districts have to be within the 5% of the target population. So those are some things that we have to work through. But I just want to make sure the board is clear that this work was done based on the guidelines and nothing else. We look forward to presenting that to you next Tuesday. We look forward to your input next Tuesday and being able to look at some scenarios and show some of the changes that were there. I'll be glad to answer any questions from any of the board members on those. But I think once we get to the work session on Tuesday, it'll be very self-explanatory. So I appreciate your time, and Mayor, that's my report.
Very good. I appreciate that, and I think we all look forward to the work session next Tuesday. I know that when I lived on Qualpaugh, I lived in 3 different districts, but I'd never moved from the place I laid my head. So I know that at times redistricting can move your house in theory within the very districts. And like I said, I lived in the same house for 18 years, and I lived in 3 different districts. So I understand the challenges there, and we all look forward to the work session. Board of Directors announcements of upcoming events. Any director have an upcoming event you'd like to share with the public? Director Dobbs-Smith.
On Saturday, September 18th, which is a week from this Saturday, the Unity Coalition will be having a meeting which is targeted at young people. It will be with the police department, and there are several guest speakers. It's anyone can attend, but it's targeted for age 15 through 25. Questions can be asked and answered. We have issues all over the city, but in particularly in my district, District 3, we have a lot of youth that are having problems with. I think there's guns all over this city, but particularly District 3. So that will be at Lake Point Church. It will be from 10 to 3, and I encourage all of you to look on their Facebook page or look in the paper. It's the Unity Coalition of Hot Springs. Thank you.
Any other? Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to announce that Habitat for Humanity is seeking volunteers, and on October 5th through the 9th is the Hills to Hammers program. We're seeking 200 women to work on the Hills to Hammers project and building 2 homes for deserving families in this project. And more volunteers are still needed. But men, don't worry. There's a current project going on now that they are seeking volunteers. So please contact Habitat for Humanity on their website. You can sign up for a day you'd like to volunteer or help in any manner would be appreciated. And additionally, Mayor, we mentioned earlier in the proclamation that we have Hispanic Heritage Month starting next week. And Suez Puentes is an organization that builds bridges in our community. And during this month, there are activities of food assistance for those in need, an art show, and also recognition of our Latino police officers this year. So the police department continues to lead in diversity within the department. And we will be recognizing in October, before the end of the month, all of the Latino and Latina police officers and the great example they are and role model, not just to the Latino children, but to everyone in our community. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any other comments from directors? When I was driving here this evening, my text message dinged, and it, it said here, you missed your payment. Replied now to pay your $60. There's just scams galore out there, and the sad thing is that good people and people of all socioeconomic standings and all levels of education receive these scams. And reminded me a week or two ago, I had some former employees at the place that I work during the day that were recipients of a scam where they received a phone call. The number was on their phone was from the Hot Springs Police Department, indicating that they had failed to provide testimony. They were a called witness at a criminal proceeding here in Garland County, and that they were to be arrested, and that but in lieu of arrest, if they were to bring some sum of money, like $15,000, that they would that would satisfy the court, and they were told to get those funds and stay on the line. They were not allowed to hang up, and the caller was asking them, your location, what kind of vehicle are you driving, where are you now, and is as if they were going to be intercepted. And I think one of the people did pay some funds. I think the Hot Springs Police Department did put out immediately a public service announcement indicating that these are scams. But I've asked Police Chief Chris Chapman to come forward and kind of provide some additional guidance as to what to do or what not to do in those situations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, the Hot Springs Police Department's not going to call you and attempt to collect funds. That's not what the organization is designed to do. So if you get any of those calls asking for funds, feel free to hang up on them. It's not going to hurt my feelings whatsoever, and probably going to hurt theirs. So please feel free to do that. If you have a concern about any type of spoofing call or fraudulent, what you believe to be fraudulent, simply call us and ask and verify. That's the easiest thing to do. If it's a legitimate police officer, they're going to be able to provide you their name, their badge number, specific details about why they are calling. And I promise, again, we're not going to ever call and ask to collect money. That's not what we are designed to do. You may receive a call from us regarding being a witness or a potential suspect in an ongoing case. Those are the type of calls we make. It may be that we have found something that belongs to you, but we will not call and collect or attempt to collect fines and fees. That is not our responsibility or our job. So obviously, if you get that call, feel free to hang up. If you have any type of spoofing call or anything like that, because these individuals have the ability to use our phone numbers, city phone numbers, police phone numbers, fire, EMS, that look and appear legitimate. But if they make you uncomfortable, simply call us. We can verify that for you and provide you the correct information. But please do not ever give money over the phone or via text without doing your due diligence and ensuring that it's a legitimate caller. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any last announcements of upcoming events? Thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda. These are of a routine nature and do not warrant individual discussion. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Director Garcia. Seconded by?
Second.
Director Weatherford. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. Earlier this evening, we moved the item number 13 to the first action item after the consent agenda, so we'll begin with that. We're going to consider ordinance 02140, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to read by title only. Motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Director Dobbs Smith, seconded by
Second.
Director Aaron Holliday. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read by title only signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. And our council, please read by title.
Mayor, this is ordinance O-21-40, an ordinance approving PD plan development zoning on 2 acres of undeveloped land generally located at the intersection of Malvern Avenue with Suburban Street and Lakeside Road, amending the future land use plan map and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. If you would entertain a motion to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Jones, seconded by Director Dobbs Smith. And our staff report will be, it's going to be provided by Kathy Salmon, Director of Planning and Development. Welcome this evening.
Thank you. Good evening. This appeal was filed by Q. Byram Hearst for the client and property owner, Dragon Vicentic. This is an appeal of the July 8th, 2021 Planning Commission decision to not recommend approval of PD plan development zoning for 2105 Malvern Avenue. The appeal was made within the 30 days established by Hot Springs Code. Okay. A little bit about what the project is that Planning Commission heard. Planning Commission heard a request from the property owner to change zoning from R2 Suburban Residential District to PD Plan Development District, zoning with a site plan for the property on Malvern. This is about 2.23 acres of land. It's at the intersection of Malvern, Suburban, and Lakeside Road. Has a future land use plan map designation of residential low. It's located in the Malvern Avenue Overlay District. It's in Board of Directors District number 6. The proposal was to allow 2 financial institutions and 1 home on the land. That, if approved, would require replatting into 3 lots, and that would be done in a separate action. Okay, according to Hot Springs Code Section 16247, the PD zone district is a combination of zoning designation and site plan. A detailed site plan is required for permitting, and development has to follow that site plan exactly. Any failure in that respect would result in a reversion of the property to the original zoning. There are specific standards for a change to a planned development. One is to provide public benefits that would not be achievable through normal zoning regulations. The proposed PD site plan does clearly show what is proposed, what uses are allowed, lot configuration, site improvements, screening, circulation, access, and so on, thereby limiting proposed possible permitted commercial activity and clarifying expectations. Number 2 is not to create undue or unmitigated negative traffic impacts. The application fails to demonstrate that the PD site plan does not create undue or unmitigated traffic impacts. It must be compatible with surrounding developments. The application fails to demonstrate that the proposed 2 financial institutions would be compatible with surrounding development. Number of letters of neighborhood opposition were submitted to Planning Commission, citing incompatibility with existing residential character, among other concerns. A petition was submitted on June 21st with 24 signatures in opposition. And in addition, new letters of opposition have been received subsequent to the advertising of this appeal. Despite testimony to traffic safety concerns at previous Planning Commission meetings, the applicant chose to provide no vehicle trip generation study or other data to demonstrate how development impacts, including traffic and the shared driveway location on a hill where Malvern Avenue curves, would not negatively impact pedestrian and vehicular safety along Malvern and at its nearby intersections. It must be compatible with the city's future land use plan. The future land use plan designates it as residential, and it must not endanger the public health, welfare, or safety, nor shall it substantially diminish or impair property values in the neighborhood in which it is located. The construction of 2 financial institutions on the site will increase traffic and traffic movements in and out of the site. Given the intimacy of the subject lots within the neighborhood and the subject's location on Malvern Avenue with both vertical and horizontal curvature, it is not possible to assess whether the character of the neighborhood will not be materially or adversely affected. The application fails to demonstrate that the proposed development will not endanger the public health, welfare, or safety of the neighborhood relating to traffic. And we are unable to assess how property values may or may not be affected as a result of the proposed development. The PD must be of a character and contain such uses that are needed in the area of the proposed project. While a single-family residence is clearly in character with the surrounding residential neighborhood, the application fails to demonstrate either how 2 financial institutions are needed in the area of the proposed project or that other commercial land in the area is unsuitable. The Hot Springs Code states that rezoning must convincingly demonstrate that the character of the neighborhood will not be materially or adversely affected by uses permitted in the proposed change. Neighborhood residents who testified were clear that it would materially and adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood. The, the staff report findings to Planning Commission are that the application fails to convincingly demonstrate that a zone change from R2 to the proposed Suburban Heights plan development will not materially or adversely affect the neighborhood. The application fails to demonstrate how the property could not be made productive under normal zoning regulations. RDOT's most recent vehicle trips per day have remained relatively steady since 2012 along this segment of Malvern Avenue. The Hot Springs Code requirements for zone change are not met. This property was the subject of pending litigation in Garland County Circuit Court, Marano LLC versus the City of Hot Springs, in connection with denial of a previous application for a different zoning request. However, the applicant's representative at the July 8th Planning Commission meeting provided signed documentation of an order to unsuit without prejudice. Planning Commission's recommendation, after duly advertising, holding a public meeting on July 8th, hearing testimony and considering the record, Planning Commission cited the findings and recommendation of the staff report and unanimously voted to not approve a motion to approve the applicant's rezone request. The applicant's representative, Mr. Hurst, did file the appeal. He mentioned that the city engineer commended the location of the shared entrance exit in the Development Review Committee meeting on June 5th, citing, this is the appellant, that application has approved several other similar site plans across town and is biased in their decision on this property based on influential members of the community opposing the planned development. In response, Planning Commission's 0-8 vote on a motion to approve included their acceptance of staff report findings and recommendation, and those findings were specific to the 2105 Malvern location. The appellant also stated in 2011, Planning Director Kathy Selman recommended that a C3 zoning request be approved by Planning Commission. The proposed use in 2011 was for Arvest Bank to put a branch on the subject property. That C3 request was not binding as to the exclusive use of 2 financial institutions as we have proposed. This PD request is much more restrictive than that C3 rezoning request, yet the Planning Department does not recommend our request. In response to that, Planning Commission's 2011 recommendation to approve C3 was reversed on appeal by the Board of Directors in 2011-2012 after they heard testimony and considered the full record. The facts in 2021 include 2 2022 decisions, as no significant change to the area has occurred, as well as the recently adopted Hot Springs 2040 Forward Hot Springs, the city's comprehensive plan, which strongly articulates community values regarding existing residential neighborhoods, preserving their quality of life, and which encourages infill residential development. The appellant stated that Malvern Avenue is a major commercial corridor. There are numerous commercial businesses on Malvern Avenue, including restaurants, pharmacies, office building, banks, and others. Most of Malvern Avenue is exclusively commercial. This property is located on Malvern and is adjacent to stoplights. There are no stoplights in front of residences in the entire city of Hot Springs because it is not compatible with residential property. The response to that is that the subject lots are located upon both vertical and horizontal curves along Malvern Avenue, conditions not well suited to traffic safety or to convenience. The subject lots also front narrow suburban drive, which is one way between Malvern and its intersection with Oakcrest Street. Oakcrest? City of Hot Springs Deputy City Manager, previously Public Works Director Danny McFate, states that no policy or regulation limits traffic signal placement relative to proximity to residential property. And finally, the appellant states, Planning staff has recommended approval of the conditional use permit for the proposed Big Red gas station on Higdon Ferry at the Lakeshore Drive intersection. That property also sits on a hill with an incline and curve, as planning staff has argued, as the reason why this PD should not be approved. The RDOT traffic count on that part of Higdon Ferry is 15,000 vehicles per day, which is higher than that on Malvern at Lakeside Road. The response to that is that Big Red on Higdon Ferry at Franklin Street is commercially zoned. It fronts a 5-lane highway and a collector street that links Higdon Ferry to Central Avenue. The appellant states that Citizens Bank and the new Farmers Bank and Trust on Higdon Ferry at Twin Points have driveways on Higdon Ferry. The Citizens branch has a right turn exit only, just as is proposed for this PD. Again, citing the RDOT traffic count of 21,000 vehicles per day is almost double the traffic count on Malvern at Lakeside. The response to that is that Higdon Ferry at Twin Points is a 5-lane highway. Malvern Avenue at Lakeside is 3 lanes. The intersection of Higdon Ferry and Twin Points is Zone C4, Regional Commercial Outdoor Display, and is surrounded by other lands similarly zoned. Malvern Avenue at Lakeside is zoned entirely R2 residential and substantially developed as stable neighborhoods. Little comparability exists between the two sites. Excuse me. The character of Malvern Avenue is that of a diagonal major street that runs from the southeast part of Hot Springs in a northwesterly direction, terminating downtown. As the diagonal intersects with a more standard grid, generally running north to south and east to west, Inevitable, roughly triangular parcels will result. The subject parcel is such a triangle. It is located at the entrance to long-established Hot Springs neighborhoods. Farther south along the same side of Malvern Avenue is Seven Oaks, a small brick-walled, residential, beautifully landscaped neighborhood of 7 lovely homes, all of which access Malvern via a single private drive. A quick Zillow check revealed that estimated home values in the Zestimate, as Zillow calls it, are in the above 500,000 range. Seven Oaks has a similar size and a somewhat triangular character, similar to that of the subject lots, demonstrating that a desirable residential development is not impossible. And the conclusion is that the appeal fails to demonstrate that a reversal will better serve the health, safety, welfare, and morals. The standards of Hot Springs Code, Section 16-11E, are not met, and the recommendation is that the board not approve the appeal. If you should decide to approve the appeal, there are 13 conditions that have been prepared that are specific to this site. Thank you.
Any questions of Ms. Selman from the board? Any questions?
She was very thorough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a number of individuals that have signed up to speak on this matter. And the first I'll call on is Mr. Randy Foley. Is Mr. Foley here? Please come forward and restate your name, address, and what district you reside in.
Honorable Mayor and members of the board, thank you for listening to my comments tonight. I'm here to oppose this project for, to me, to be some very serious impacts on the residents. I've lived in Eastgate 2 for 30 years, and so I drive through that intersection at least once a day, every day. The first part of this whole thing is the underpinning of all of this rezoning rests with the understanding that this project is not supposed to be materially impacting the neighborhood when you get a zone change, or adversely affecting. If you stand across the street from this development and you look at the plat of development, you'll see almost nothing but asphalt when this is finished. You'll see 2 bank buildings on top of a bunch of asphalt. And to say that that won't change the character of the neighborhood, I think is just a misunderstanding of what a neighborhood is really like. There's a private investor here, and he's trying to make some money, and I understand that, but I don't think that it should be at the expense of the people in the neighborhoods. Thank you for your
Any questions?
patience.
Mr. Foley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next, I'll call on Mr. Brian Reese. Will you please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please?
Yes, I am. I'm Brian Reese, and I represent Dr. John and Valerie Bond, who live at 108 Suburban Drive, where they've lived for about 30 years. I'll also point out that Dr. Bond's father built that house in 1963, which I guess is around 60 years ago, on a lot that was guaranteed to be residential forever in the Bill of Assurance, not only for his lot, but for the lots that comprise the property you're here to discuss tonight. Now, Dr. Bond actually lives immediately to the east of this property. Dr. Bond is here tonight. Many people who live in this neighborhood are here tonight, and I will point out that those people are now here for the 3rd time about this, that somehow the applicants have been able to change the identity of the owner to be able to, since last June, to be able to go from C3 application to commercial transitional application to now planned development. So we're here for the third time. Thank you for entertaining us. The sixth time, if you consider Planning Commission in addition. I think it's important to point out that the neighbors have petitioned, have emailed, have braved the virus to come down here. Every single resident owner in Suburban Heights subdivision has signed a petition opposed to this. That petition was presented at the Planning Commission. It's overwhelmingly opposed by virtually every neighborhood within the vicinity. It's opposed by the Hot Springs Country Club. I don't know where the woman is tonight, but at every Planning Commission meeting, and I think the last time we were here with you, Hot Springs Country Club appeared in opposition. They put a letter in the file, which you have. The planning staff recommended against it. The Planning Commission voted 0-8. Not one person that does not have a financial interest has spoken in favor of this at any time. So why is that important? It's important because of your code section 16229 that says no new zones may be created within the land area of an existing zoning classification unless rezoning is appropriate to the area and is in the general public interest and not merely in the interest of an individual or a small group. Such rezoning must also convincingly demonstrate that the character of the neighborhood will not be materially or adversely affected by the uses permitted in the proposed change. And so, when they complain in their appeal that they don't want you people to listen to the people out there in the neighborhood, I say that they're wrong, that your code explicitly says that you're supposed to do that. This use is inconsistent with your own future land use plan map, which recommends residential low density. It's contrary to the Malvern Overlay District, which says that you're supposed to protect and enhance the visual appearance and character of the neighborhood. You're supposed to maintain harmony with adjacent residential neighborhoods along Malvern Avenue, and that you're supposed to avoid the undesired effects of small lot strip development.
Okay, we need to
And there-
wrap it up, Mr. Reese.
Yes, can I make one more point?
Please.
And the one more point is this. Don't be sold a bill of goods here. There's language in your city code, and you may want to consult with Mr. Albright about this. There's language in your city code that says they've got to follow their site plan exactly. But what it doesn't say until later in your code is that the uses on that site plan can be amended. In fact, they can be amended by the staff, the planning staff, and so the two commercial uses that are shown on the site plan you've been given that say bank, bank, right next to each other, can be changed, for example, to medical marijuana dispensary and performance toys auto sales too. And so you can have this change so that you don't have two banks there, branch banks, but instead some other commercial use, and it doesn't even have to come back to you folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
for
questions
listening.
of Mr. Reese? Thank you. Mr. Reese indicated he was representing, the bonds. I see that Dr. Bond is listed. Did you want to make comment, Dr. Bond?
Since he ran over, everything he said I agree with.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mark Russell, or Dr. Russell, please. Please come forward and restate your name, Dr. Russell, and district and address.
Mark Russell, 102 Whispering Hills Street. That's in Eastgate 2. And what else was I supposed to tell you? My district. Number 6.
6, yeah.
So I'm not on the Planning Commission. I'm not a lawyer. I am a friend of Dr. Bond. So I guess all that's left is that I'm one of those influential people in the community. Now, I think my wife would beg to differ with that. I'm here as Barney's friend. I'm also here as a resident of an adjacent neighborhood. And there's lots of things that people have said in all of these 6 different meetings we've been in. But the bottom line for me and most of the people in my neighborhood that I've talked to, and of course that's not all of the people in my neighborhood, but many of them, is the safety issue. And it's only been recently that we got the stoplight there, and I've been risking my life for 30 years coming out of that intersection more and more as time went on and the traffic increased, and we're very grateful for that stoplight. Down the hill from that stoplight is Suburban, which is one way only going into the neighborhood because it's so dangerous to turn out onto Malvern from Suburban. That's actually further away from that stoplight and that curve and the hill than the exit off of this property on Malvern. And so for myself, I'm not going to be driving that many more years, but my daughter and son-in-law live in Eastgate 2, and my 2 grandsons, one of which will be driving in 5 years. I ask you not to make this commercial to provide a public safety crisis. Thanks.
Any questions of Dr. Russell? Thank you. Biddy Martin, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please. And just a reminder that we are on a clock up here on the screens of 3 minutes, and I understand that there will be times when people will go over, and we try to contain that, but at the same time, just be sensitive to the time clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McCabe. I'm Biddy Martin. I live at 107 Bel Air Drive, District 6. Each of you received an email from me today, and so you know how I stand, and I'm not going to repeat what I said in those emails, but I am going to point out this file that I started back May 8th, 2020. Here's a project brief. Then we go to June 11th. Here's some Planning Commission meeting minutes. And then most recently, the planning staff report from July 8th of 2021. This is, like was said earlier, we've been here 6 times. I just ask you to please end this tonight. Please keep our neighborhood residential and keep it safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Martin from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Peggy Maruther, would you please come forward and restate your name and address and district, please.
Peggy Maruther, 203 Bel Air Drive. I've been here 6 times, and I'm very, very worried about what could happen to our neighborhood. As I've stated before, I have fought for every single district that you represent, including the county, because the one thing that makes Hot Springs great is our neighborhoods, the backbone of our city. We are a neighborhood comprised of many neighborhoods: Suburban Subdivision, Bel Air Drive, Seven Oaks, Arlington Park, Eastgate, Baffin Ridge, Country Club Village. This handout is only a version of what could happen, as was stated, and I don't know the code, but it was stated. If this appeal does go through, they can change the use with the city employees, staff, and it doesn't even come back to you. Our lives are literally on the line. If you try coming out of Suburban Drive, Bel Air Drive, and nobody talks about Country Club Village, those are the most vulnerable people. My mom lived on Lakeside Drive, 101, And she left because of all the fatalities. And she couldn't stand it. Well, she moved to the other end of town, and then she wanted to come back to Malvern Avenue. And Country Club Village, she was almost hit several times because of the speed of the cars. You can go there anytime, and you see cars going 40 to 50 miles an hour, and you feel like they're being aimed at you. They don't know you're there because of the topography. As it was stated, it's crooked, and you cannot see the people. People are not after you, but they can hit you. The proposal with 2 banks would actually give 44 vehicles a place to come in and out that are not there now. And the reason that that stoplight was put there, which is very unusual, it's hard to get a stoplight in a residential area, but it's such a high-risk area that to add some more commercial property in a zone that's invisible to the people who have to live there, the people that are proposing it, they're going to propose it. Their bottom line is making some money, and that I'm all for that, but not at the cost of other people's safety. Please don't do this. This is my 6th time, and again, the neighborhood is saying no. Don't ruin our neighborhood and risk our lives. I'm begging you, please vote no for the appeal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David Thurman, please come forward, restate your name, address, and district, please.
David Thurman, 203 Bel Air Drive. I've been coming out of the Malvern end of Bel Air for several years now, working on a property over there. And I see what the traffic is like during the peak times. And it can be really intense. I can't believe how fast people come down that hill. I know the light stays green most of the time for people on Malvern. So they're coming in from out of town, coming down that hill. And I just see the potential for a lot of accidents to happen there if this is developed the way they want to develop this. I understand it's property and they want to develop it, but I think that the best choice for the health and welfare of all the people that use that highway, any of you guys that go up and down that road know how busy that is if you go during rush hour. If it's zoned for just for like townhomes for residential, and they're given a way out where they can come out onto Suburban Drive, if that was widened a little bit, it would make that a lot easier for that to happen and a lot safer. And I think that that's the way that that should be developed, and I'm adamantly opposed to this being developed the way they want to do it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mark Toth, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Mark Toth. I live at 110 Montclair Lane in the Whittington Valley. I don't live over in this community, but I've seen this happen in my community. I've seen it happen in other districts. At the Planning Commission, and I cannot paraphrase word for word, but one of the people spoke and said that, you know, the developers are pursuing money, and that's important and that's good, but the value of a piece of land for people who have their homes on that land is not measured in dollars and cents. It's measured here. And the point is, it's a residential neighborhood. You've heard it. You're going to have traffic. You're going to have accidents. You're going to have encroachment. Why have zoning? Why have zoning? I've said this before. Zoning is simple. Like with like. There's houses there. It's a residential community. That's not the right place to put two banks. As Ms. Selman has said, and everybody else, I know Winnie French. She got T-boned in her car there. And as a result, she couldn't drive anymore. I mean, this is a serious issue, and your decision will dramatically impact people's lives, not only in terms of their property, but in how they live their lives, because there will be accidents caused there. Please, please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Larry Bailey. Mr. Bailey, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Hi, Larry Bailey, 118 Suburban Drive. 41 years in June. I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old when I came here now. They're 46 and 44. So I have a great investment in this neighborhood. It's a wonderful neighborhood. It's a viable neighborhood. I've watched it go through 2 changes of generations, from little kids running around on the street to old people. The old people moved on. I'm the oldest. I was the youngest, now I'm the oldest. So I've seen it move. The applicant for this zoning change he asserts that this property is not viable for residential development. And I disagree with that 100%. At the last planning committee meeting, there was a real estate agent that made a statement that if they build garden homes on there, I can sell them before they roof them. 200 yards down the road on the left side, Seven Oaks was built in this time period. Those are townhouses. They're right up against the road. And right now, going on over on the old Pine Golf Course, over on the country club, they're building $350,000 to $500,000 houses, and 12 of those plots are right on the road, and 5 of them are already filled. And one of them, right there on the right side of the entrance, is only about from here to that door from Malvern Avenue. This is viable property. It's the best place you can find, right across the street. If you put townhouses in there, they can walk to the corner of Lakeside. There's a crosswalk there now with a button. They can turn it on, walk across the highway, and they're in the country club tennis courts. This is very viable residential property, and it'll happen. It hasn't been put to residential users because they're asking for commercial property prices on it ever since Harvey Deardorff died and gave it to the diocese, the Catholic diocese in Little Rock. It is not viable for commercial property. And how do we know that? Not because it, as they say, it's been laying there fallow. It's because it's dangerous. The only way you can get in and out is on to Malvern Avenue. One member of the Planning Commission made a statement I found very true. He said he went out there and parked there, walked up and stood 3 foot from the curb, and he said, I'll paraphrase him, it was terrifying as the traffic went by. The speed limit's 40. It's a 4-lane United States highway. The average pace is probably closer to 50, and they've got this entrance and exit 30 feet over the peak of the hill. You can't even see that traffic light till you peak the hill. And their entrance is 30 feet on the left. You're going to slaughter people as you get. It is not viable commercially, and under any circumstances. It's too dangerous. And that's come out 4 times with the Planning Commission boards, and you all concurred with it. Two meetings, one appeal ago. And not only that, it's just incompatible with our neighborhood. I've lived there for 41 years. My wife and I are probably going to die there. Don't take my neighborhood away from me. Please. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Bailey?
I got something to say.
Yeah.
Mr. Bailey.
Larry, please return to the podium.
I hear what you say about it not being viable commercial, but it's more for residential.
Yep.
So you're saying it's okay for somebody to build a house there and get killed along there, and it is.
But, yeah, yes, sir.
No, this is exactly what you just said.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I said. I'll tell you how I see
So
it.
you'd rather see residential there and kids playing there and being hit coming over the hill.
Right.
as Vehicles coming out of the bank.
What you would
That's
have
what you're
there
saying?
is you could build an 8-foot wall for a sound barrier, whatever the city zoning is, back from the highway, and you put a service road in between those things. You could put probably 6 or 7 garden homes or maybe 5 townhouses in there, and their inserts and exit would be onto Suburban Drive next to Wellington.
You don't want that.
No, that's fine.
You don't want them going on the Suburban.
I don't want what?
All I ever hear, you don't want any traffic coming on the Suburban.
I have fine problem with it's residential. I want to see residential. That's residential. I don't want to see it concreted over with traffic going in and out on the highway. That's what I don't want to see. And if you lived in one of those 5 houses that are right next to it, 2 on that side and 3 on that side, you'd be standing up here strutting around like a bird. There's nothing wrong with the residences in there. Garden homes in there would be perfect. Townhouses would be perfect. And all of us agree with that. We want to see it stay what it was, residential. We don't want it turned commercial. It's residential from Baffinwood all the way down to Melwood. When I sat on the Long Range Planning Committee in 1992 with Peggy here, we were told that Galvin Avenue was going to see commercialization, and we agreed with that. But what we also agreed on, and the city board bought it, was that we would not allow commercialization to impinge upon established residential neighborhoods. Suburban Heights has been there for 75 years. It's totally residential until Harvey died and deeded it to the church, and they said, we have no use for it, let's get the most we can get out of it, and a big, huge 6 by 8 foot Gerke commercial real estate sign hit the lot, and they've been at it ever since.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you. Mr. Brad Hudgens, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Good evening. I'm Brad Hudgens at 144 Ravenwood Place, and I'm a proud member of District 6. I first of all want to say, until all of this process over the last year, I had no idea how many mountains of workload that Kathy Selman's department puts out. So my accolades to their department. They do a great job, and I'm going to applaud them right now. I want to also reach out and thank the neighbors who've been so solid in fighting this over the last year and year plus. People like former city director Randy Foley and Peggy Maruther, folks like Becky Scott, who owns the country club property. She wrote a beautiful letter, if you had a chance to read it in your packet. People like Wayne Smith, the general manager of Oaklawn, send information as well. These are people who love the neighborhood. These are people in numerous neighborhoods surrounding this property who don't want this to be commercial. And you say, well, gee, there's a country club right there. Is country club commercial? No. If you look at country clubs all across the nation, I'll just go to Little Rock. Pleasant Valley Country Club, surrounded only by residential, no commercial. Little Rock Country Club, only residential all around it. Pleasant Valley Country Club, only residential. Chenal, only residential. Why should Hot Springs suffer? Why should we have commercial within our residential community that surrounded our club-like environment that we have grown accustomed to and we live by every day? From a danger perspective, someone just mentioned about the stand 3 foot back. If you haven't had a chance to go there and look at it, it's crazy, the cars that run by there. And I know where that ingress-egress built, the little curb cut, and that was built when it was a 2-lane street, basically. And that's where they want to come in and out, and it's no longer a 2-lane street. As you know, the staff recommended against this. You get a unanimous vote against this. I hadn't heard it mentioned tonight, but in the code, it states specifically that the planning development cannot be used to subvert zoning requirements. In other words, you can't use it to beat the commercial C3 CTR route. It specifically states that in there. And here we've gone from an attempt at C3. There was actually a filing at C2 they withdrew, then CTR, and here we are at a planned development. What does it tell you? And what Becky Scott mentioned was trying to keep the integrity, to keep the grace of this residential area. And so therefore, I ask you, please vote no. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Hudgens? Thank you. This time we'll hear from Mr. Q. Byram Hurst, please come forward and restate your name and address and district, please. And
Mr. Mayor, would you consider allowing our engineer to go first before me so he could lay out the plan?
yes, that's fine. I didn't have his name on the list, but that's fine. Please come forward. State your name, address and district, and perhaps what your who you're associated with.
Thank you, Mayor. Bear Davidson, Davidson Engineering out of Searcy on behalf of the applicant. I can't speak to all the reasons why the Planning Commission rejected our proposal, but I would like to speak a little about the site layout and design. This project has been a little different. Often when we're working on site layouts, we're trying to make sure we meet the requirements of the end user. That's the primary concern, or cost concerns with construction, trying to minimize cost. This project's been a little different because of the fact that the layout has been somewhat dictated by previous comments on failed attempts at rezoning and site development. And I say that to say that this client, this landowner and applicant, asked that we gather those comments, the feedback from previous attempts, and try to accommodate those requests. For example, in the past, some layouts were shown with entrances on the side streets other than Malvern Avenue. Because that met opposition in the past, this layout shows one single shared entrance between the two financial institutions with a shared ingress, egress, access easement. Obviously, it's been voiced tonight in the past that traffic is a concern on Malvern Avenue. It is a state highway, and we acknowledge that and recognize that. Because of that, we made an effort to be strategic with the location of that drive at the midpoint between the two intersections. It was stated earlier, and I'll repeat, that Mr. Carnahan at the design review meeting acknowledged that and thanked us for attention to detail on the distance from that intersection with the signal. I also would like to point out, as traffic has been pointed out as a concern, that right now currently this property is zoned residential and it's platted as 4 residential lots that front on Malvern Avenue. So based on current zoning and the current approved plat, as it's been discussed earlier, someone could potentially come in and build 4 homes with 4 separate driveways on Malvern Avenue that wouldn't be strategically placed at the midpoint. They'd be closer to those intersections in proximity based on the fact that the lots are spaced out evenly along Malvern Avenue. This layout's an improvement from that because it is one shared drive that's placed at the midpoint. Also would like to point out that while we took into consideration past comments from surrounding property owners, we've also addressed the comments of the planning staff throughout the process after the design review committee, then with another round of comments, and even a last minute resubmittal adjusting to a right-in, right-out only entrance, so that no left-hand turns could be made off of Malvern into the site or left-hand turns out of the site onto Malvern. We accommodated that comment at the last minute. So throughout the process, the goal of the developer has been to accommodate the comments of the city staff and the surrounding property owners, and we would just ask that you would consider that tonight in your vote. Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Q. Byram Hurst, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please. And Mr. Hurst, we recognize that the number of people who are on the against side are outnumbered the people on the for side, and you representing your client will allow you some additional time to try to touch some of the bases that you might not otherwise be able to in a 3-minute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I will be as brief as I possibly can, because I know that the board is, and by the way, to make it formality, I'm Q. Byram Hurst, and my business address is 520 Washita here in Hot Springs. I've been practicing law here for 48 years, and I have been representing the owner of this property even when they have changed since 2008. I represented Harvey Deerdorf. And, you know, it's remarkable because I'm hearing a lot of criticism from people that get up and talk about why we've been up here 3 and 4 times. Well, I can tell you why we've been up here 3 or 4 times, because we're trying to let them know, let the property owners in some of these subdivisions know exactly what's going on, and this is a very safe environment that we have proposed. Now, in 2008, when we initially had the property, and the property was left by will from Harvey Deerdorf to the Catholic Church. Well, they had the property for some time, and this is not property that sits in a quiet, serene neighborhood like most of these folks live in. This is property that sits right on Highway 270, and it's been described, even by Ms. Selman, as a major commercial corridor in Hot Springs. Well, in 2011, Arvest Bank wanted to buy this property, and came with the process that if it could be rezoned from R2 to C3, they would buy it and open a bank. The banking industry was changing from big buildings downtown where they had these huge buildings. They would even rent out office space to smaller branch-type banks, and that's what they were going to. Well, the planning department at that time agreed that that was a very good purpose, and Ms. Selman referred to it. That was rejected. It was rejected primarily because the same folks that are here tonight protesting this were here in 2011 protesting it. And so the property has sat there. Well, when my recent clients bought the property, they originally wanted to rezone it from R2 to C3. And it was met with all kinds of protests. Primarily the protest was not just a safety issue, but it was also, what are you going to do with the property? Things were said like, is it going to be a liquor store? Is it going to be a strip club put in there, and things of that nature. And then the highway department put in a stoplight right there to ensure us of safety. But that still didn't satisfy, and we heard them. We heard the voices, what they were saying. So what we did was we came to the board and with a new plan and said, will you rezone it to CTR, commercial transitional? And we thought that would appease people, because in that zoning requirement, you have to have the use approved before you can put a use in. But that also met with opposition. And I can tell you that the night that it met with opposition, there was a man here opposing it named Larry Myers. He was a man that I respected and I took advice from, that I thought he was a tremendous realtor. And he told me, look, we all know that this should be commercial property, but we need to know exactly what's going to go in there. And it clicked in my brain after studying the zoning code that PD, planned development, was what would assure all the neighbors, everyone there, that the property was going to be used for. So we developed a plan, and Mr. Davidson just described it. The first thing we did is proposed a residence as a buffer between Dr. Bond. We love Dr. Bond. Barney Bond's one of the finest men I've ever met. And we want to put a residence between him and the commercial aspects that assures him of privacy, that assures him of the serenity of his own property that I know he loves. But we also want to put a bank, just like in 2011 when it was approved by the planning department. We want to put 2 banks there on that busy, loud, noisy Highway 270. And I know that Larry is not with us anymore, and I can't say what Larry would do or not do, but I can tell you that I took his advice when we decided to do the planned development. Now, I know there's lots of good folks here that have spoken against this, and I don't think that friendships or politics should enter into this. It's not a popularity contest. We're following the rules of the zoning code. That's what we've done all along. We're just asking you to be fair, to think about this in the reality of what it is. And I can tell you, my son, my wife, and I own property on Suburban Drive. We don't want to hurt Suburban Drive. This is not going to do that. This is not the same kind of property that they live in. This is different. This is property that is conducive to commercial activity. And that's just the reality. Thank you very much, and I hope you'll vote.
Any questions of Mr. Hurst? Any
I'm sorry.
questions from the board? Did I hear a question? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes, oh, no, excuse me. Our final individual has signed up to speak is the applicant, Mr. Dragon Vicente. Please come forward and restate your name and address and district, please.
Good evening, Board. Good evening, Board. I'm Dragon Vicente. I live at 119 Winding Ridge. I'm here to have the property at the corner of Malvern Avenue and Lakeside Roads rezoned for a planned development, or PD for short. This planned development will include 2 banks on the front of the property adjoining State Highway 270, also known as Malvern Avenue, and to construct 1 single residence home on the back side of the property. After Save-A-Lot and Alco gave up on Hot Springs, I led Walmart and negotiated the contract for the new Walmart Market to make Indiandale Shopping Center their new home. I believe in the Malvern Avenue area and live in Eastgate 2 just behind the proposed property and own half a dozen properties in the Malvern Avenue area. There are only 2 adjoining neighbors to this planned development. Mr. Hobby, who stated the neighborhood is not against rezoning, we just want to know exactly what is going to be built, and your planned development would address that. The second is Dr. Bond, who is adamantly and resolutely opposed to any type of change whatsoever. We went to the planning department with the PD and were met with resistance right off the bat. Our engineers went to work feverishly to incorporate all of the ideas and suggestions Kathy Selman and the rest of the departments had to offer. We were in direct contact the whole time and even made Selman's suggested changes up to the day before the planning department meeting. In fulfilling all the criteria suggested and imposed by the city planning department, we reasoned that the PD had the blessing of the Hot Springs Planning Department. However, Ms. Selman did a complete 100% reversal and publicly denounced the PD after everything she wanted was implemented into the plan. Dr. Bond was very instrumental in his role as the puppet master to get a dozen influential people who live far away to be his minions to make calls, send emails, and influence commissioners to all of a sudden change their minds and vote against city policy and cave to political pressure. I will now list examples of similar properties that have been approved as follows. The Birchwood Lakeshore subdivision with over 200 residents in opposition was approved. Arvest Bank on Malvern Avenue was approved. First Security Bank on Malvern Avenue was approved. Tim Winston Shopping Center next to Malvern and the Carpenter Dam Road was approved. Silver Key subdivision on 5 Points with dozens of residents in opposition was approved. Citizens and Farmers Bank on Higdon Ferry Road was approved. Big Red on Higdon Ferry Road was approved. Majestic Amphitheater with dozens in opposition, just to name a few approvals. This is a planned development on a commercial state highway with dozens of like properties in the immediate area approved for commercial use. This is nothing different from what has been approved time after time within the zoning regions of the city of Hot Springs. Karen Garcia, during the last CTR rezoning vote of this property, suggested that if this property would be brought back as a planned development, it would be approved. Former board member Becca Clark commented last week on social media that this negative obsession with banks confounds me. It means people who study and do this for a living are making a solid bet on our town. Plus, they are good, tidy neighbors who support community efforts. Yay, new banks. So board members, please do not cave to the few minions that have called you and applied political pressure to vote against this project. You are here for the betterment of the city, to support these policies moving forward, and I thank you for your vote and support.
Thank you. Are there any questions by the board members? Director Garcia?
Yes, sir. Just clarification, the Silver Key project is not commercial, it's a residential planned development. It has it did not get approval as what they had requested. It's now approved as residential. And if you look at the YouTube video of the meeting, I did not make that comment. That was attributed to me to get approval.
Are there other questions of the speaker? You've heard from the various meetings, commission meetings, and perhaps even the board meetings, where those who provide testimony make reference to maintaining its residential function. Or have you given any consideration to having it be residential, townhomes and garden homes?
It's not a viable location. You've got kids that are going to be playing there, and I guess somebody suggested a 6-foot or 8-foot wall up against Malvern Avenue. What happens when a semi crashes into that wall and hits those kids? This isn't a residential area. It's a state highway. It's commercial property. Commercial buildings need to be there. Those commercial buildings wouldn't be on the street. They're going to be set back from the highway.
Any further questions of the speaker? Thank you.
Thank you.
This concludes the list of those who have signed up to speak on this issue.
I forgot to sign up. I apologize. I forgot.
I was just going to ask if anybody else had a desire to speak.
I was distracted with the first responders thing. I apologize.
So let's state your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Dayton Myers. I live outside the city limits, but my professional address is 3531 Central Avenue. I live in the county. I've been a developer since day one on this project. We've went through two different property owners, my client Jim Green and my client Dragon Vicinic. I've been involved with all three requests on this piece of property. As Mr. Hurst, Mr. Vicinic, Mr. Davidson have all addressed, we keep changing our plan because of what the neighbors' comments are. Maybe it's just the city doesn't like me. Maybe that's why this hadn't gotten passed yet. But I was scrolling through social media earlier this afternoon, and if y'all aren't familiar with something called Nextdoor, it's kind of like a neighborhood Facebook. And I want to distribute just a couple things to a couple specific directors. To be Director Trusty and Director Garcia. Now, this gentleman, I do not know this Mr. David Nash. But what I have here is a Nextdoor post by Miss Biddy Martin that is calling people to come out to the meeting tonight, which is fine. And there's a comment on here by David Nash that says, I have reached out to Steve Trusty and Karen Garcia. Both have said they were voting no tonight. Now, if that is not true, Mr. Nash is a liar. But if it is true, why are we even here? If two directors have already made up their minds on how they're going to vote before the public hearing, not only have they broken the rule and talked off record when they're not supposed to, and they should recuse themselves. If that is true, I call on both of you to recuse yourselves before the vote. Because I called two directors, Mr. Weatherford and Mr. McCabe, and they both gave me the appropriate response, which is, I cannot talk to you because this is off the record. So, be that as it may, Chambers Bank is wanting to expand their presence in this town. One of the banks, I have personal confirmation from the corporate president of Chambers Bank, that they want to go there. Are we telling Chambers Bank that we don't want them to expand their presence in our town? I don't know. Directors, Mr. Mayor, it takes boldness to serve in the positions that you serve in. You are in the hot seat, and you sometimes have to make decisions that are not popular. But that doesn't mean the decisions that are unpopular that you make are not the right decisions. You do this job without pay and are subject to a lot of criticism, and it's honorable of you to serve there. They've already made up their minds. Director Holliday, Director Jones, Director Smith, Mr. Mayor, and Director Weatherford, I urge you to make the right decision tonight, just as you have on various other things where the neighborhood has been opposed. Approve this PD and do the right thing. I'll respect your decision any way it is. Kind of have a pretty good idea of how it's going to go, but I appreciate your service anyways. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? Thank you. Was there anyone else who wanted to speak on this matter who hasn't already spoken?
Yes, please. Sure? Yeah. Okay. I didn't get to sign in because I was out in the lobby.
Yeah, please come forward and state your name, address, and district, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Milan Rakic. My wife Pam Clark and I live at 200 Wellington, District 6. We're about 200 feet away from this property. My concern, along with everybody else's, is that commercial property on that part of Malvern is either at the hospital and towards downtown or at Golf Links and Carpenter Dam Road. There's a half a mile strip there, which includes this property, which is all residential. There is not a commercial property adjacent to this, near this. You have to go a quarter mile in either direction to get to another commercial property. So, from the hospital to Golf Links, no commercial property. So, it doesn't belong there. Thank you for your time.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hudgens, please come forward. Restate your name and address, please, and district.
Stacy Hudgens, 144 Ravenwood Place. And I just wanted to clarify, 2 different times Mr. Hurst has referred to Larry Myers, who is now deceased, as wanting commercial. And I have a text message from his wife, Jan, that said that she has sent a letter to Rick Stodder and asked him to share it with the board of directors. She has also notified many people in Arlington Park. I do not know Mr. Dragon personally, but I do not want anything to do with him or his commercial projects. I have also alerted our new neighbors, Nick and Brooke Dodd. I think Nick will be present at the meeting to speak. Hope all is good with you. I don't think I can serve any purpose at this time because I think so many other people will be there to represent me in our neighborhood. And Brooke and Nick Dodd are here, and they're the new owners of the historic 100-year-old home that's on the historic preservation. And they live on Malvern Avenue. They live 2 doors from this property that's in question, and everybody here that is trying to develop this is saying that it's not viable residential. It's viable residential. They just bought this home and moved in. Please deny this request to rezone commercial in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Any questions of the speaker? Thank you. Okay, one last call for those who haven't had an opportunity to speak yet. Please come forward and restate your name and address. Well, I guess you're Mr. Dodd, please.
My name is Nick Dodd, 2145 Malvern Avenue, District 6. Like Ms. Hudgens just stated, we had just bought this house here just a few months ago. When we had an appraisal done on our house, they had to do a comparable between commercial and residential. And it was not viable for our house to be in a commercial district. It's more viable for a residential neighborhood because that's what's there now. I am opposed to changing any zoning reference to this area.
Any questions of Mr. Dodd? Thank you. That will close the comment period from those in attendance. We appreciate everybody's comments, both for and against, and we appreciate your adherence to the time frame. We do recognize that some of the legal counsel representing clients were provided a little greater latitude than some others, but we appreciate each and every one of you and your comments tonight. Discussion amongst directors. Is there any discussion amongst directors on this item?
Mayor, if I may, before there is discussion, I want to clarify a couple of items. It may have a bearing on the board's discussion itself.
Please.
It was stated that under the city code, section 16.247G, that staff can change the uses that are part of a PD. That is incorrect. Staff may make minor changes to the site plan if there are certain elements that have been met, but uses cannot be changed. I simply want to make that clear to you so that whatever your decision is made for the right decision, and Mr. Hurst can't use that as a matter for appeal. That's not an issue. Secondly, with respect to any conversations that Director Garcia, Director Trustee, Director Weatherford, or yourself had with any constituent regarding this matter, I just want to point out as from time to time, we have to, have another primer on this. What is the difference between a conditional use and a zoning request? Rezoning request is a legislative function, not a quasi-judicial. If it's quasi-judicial, you cannot have ex parte communication. If you do, you have to disclose it or recuse. If it's legislative, you are permitted to speak to whomever you choose about such legislative functions. Just wanted to clarify that so that either one of those issues doesn't influence your decision, whatever that may be.
Very good. Any further discussion amongst directors?
Can we ask
Director,
questions?
Director
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Weatherford,
Let her go ahead, she said first.
Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. As I understand that the question before us is to change a residential zone to a commercial zone. And during this past year, it seems to me we've had an increase in these type requests. And I don't view any neighborhood resident as more influential than anyone in any neighborhood. All residents of a neighborhood want the same thing. They want to live in a residential neighborhood area. They want safety. They want to have the value that they've put into their home maintained. And that's what I hear from people that annexed into the city. They wanted the protection that they believed the city zoning codes could give them. Also, in the increase in this, I've had an increase in complaints of residents in all areas of the city regarding these requests to change from residential to commercial, because more and more business is encroaching on the residential areas, and whether they're a long-term or a short-term resident, they invested to make that their home and did not want that business in their residential, on their street or in their neighborhood. And that's why we have different zonings for commercial and for residential. The banks that have developed the area at the intersection of Twin Points and Higdon Ferry have done a very nice job. It's maintained well. I'm not aware of problems that have arisen since they have, one is finished there and the other's being developed, but it was commercial property. It wasn't in the residential neighborhoods that are not too far from there, but there was no zoning change that had to be made for those particular items. So for every neighborhood, they want to have residential zoning and protect their neighborhood to keep the character as it is and not have these commercial businesses as part of their neighborhood. And that's the biggest question. And that's what I have looked at on this and other requests. And that's why I am looking to support residential zoning for residential neighborhoods. I did, Mr. Myers said that, Mr. Dayton Myers said that I had already said how I would vote. I did not say how I would vote to anyone. Several people in the audience contacted me email. I don't think I had conversations with any of you. But as the city attorney just said, this isn't an item that we can not have participation in contact and discussing with you. I appreciate everyone's input. I do want a balance between commercial and residential, but in the right zoning areas. And I do want these banks to come to Hot Springs, but I also want our residents to live here and protect the values and their safety of their neighborhoods. And I want more people to want to live in Hot Springs. And if we continually take away from residential zoning to make commercial, it decreases a opportunity for others to make those residential areas, to move in there and make that their home. So I ask us to look at supporting the residential neighborhood.
Very good, thank you. Director Trustee or Director Weatherford, did you have
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Someone that spoke said that and this is for Mr. McFate, said the light there at Lakeside and Malvern stayed green most of the time. What is the sequence of that light? Is that when you pull up, is it on a sensor, or is that timed?
Mr. McFay is coming to the podium.
Director, it's certain lights have a certain length of green time that they run, and it's based on traffic flow and the traffic volumes. Malvern Avenue's probably got, on an average of that area of the highway would be about 40-second green time. And then it cycled through off the side street, depending on the volumes of traffic of the particular time of day. And it's probably more of a 25-second green cycle, but it's triggered on movement of a vehicle in those zones.
Okay, so it doesn't stay green all the time.
If there's no call
there's no-
in on
yeah,
Lakeside,
no call for it to-
it will stay green until there's a call locked in.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. This is for Ms. Selman, and it's reference to what Director Garcia said, that she had, I think, many complaints on asked for rezoning. How many rezonings have you had in the last 12 months?
Probably about a dozen,
Okay.
excuse me.
And how many of those came to the Planning Commission as a approve or a disapprove?
I believe the recommendation to approve, we had 11 rezone applications. We had 3 with a recommendation to deny and 8 with recommendation to approve.
So there were 3 that were for denial?
Mhm.
Can you tell me what those were?
I can tell you that this
This one? yes.
location had recommendations to deny, and those are the 3 that I'm aware of. I have them all here.
No, I'm not asking if they came back. I'm asking, out of the 11 or 12, how many did you bring to the Planning Commission as denial or
3.
approval? You asked the 3 of them denial? I'm not
Yes.
talking about the rezone of this. You're counting this property 3 times?
Yes, I am.
So really, you only had 8 come to you for, let's say, 9
Well, I
come
would
to
s-
rezone.
Right,
With this one, that's 2 more times.
right.
Okay.
But some that were approved were appealed.
Right, yeah, we had appeals by neighborhoods, yes. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, if I may ask you a question. Do you believe after all the speakers tonight, that the Planning Commission erred in any way on its recommendation to deny this?
Planning Commission followed the requirements of the code, and they made findings based upon the requirements of the code.
Okay.
And in so doing, there is no error.
No error in that recommendation. Okay. Mr. Mayor, if I may make another statement. I was out of town last week, and I had 6 people contact me while I was out of town. 1 phone call and 5 text messages. And City Attorney Albright, that's when I contacted you about what I could say, what I couldn't say, what I could talk to those people about. And based on your response, I talked to all of them. And I believe I conveyed the message to everyone that if the Planning Commission had not made an error, I was sure how I was going to vote tonight. We listened to this testimony to see if there's something that should influence us in a different manner than what the Planning Commission, who we've trusted to interpret the rules and the regulations under the guidance of Ms. Selman and her staff, and bring a recommendation to us. If they've made an error, that needs to come out, and we can change that. And we have done that since I've been on the board. We have sent some things back to the Planning Commission or overturned a ruling on the Planning Commission. And that's why I wanted to ask Ms. Selman if she thought any errors had been made in this tonight. But Brian, based on your response, I did communicate with those 6, and I bet I've had 20 more since then, and I've tried to communicate with all of them. They've all been in my district. Those are the people who elected me to this position, and I'll try to communicate with anyone who contacts me about any issue that comes up. And I'm not apologizing for any of that. So, thank you.
Any other comments by directors? Okay, as we prepare to vote on this matter, just remember that the ordinance comes to you in the affirmative. So if you say yes to the item, you are agreeing with the plan development, and if you vote no on the item, you are supporting the recommendation of the Planning Commission to deny the appeal or to deny the plan development. So just want to make sure everybody understands.
So
that.
there was a motion to approve and a
Right,
second.
the motion is to approve.
The motion is to
It's
approve.
in the affirmative.
Yes, sir.
So if there's more ayes than noes, then the plan development is approved. Okay, so we all understand it. This is one of these that comes somewhat backwards from the standpoint where the Planning Commission is recommending denial. And so, but a yes vote is an approval of the plan development. A no vote is against the plan development. All right? Being there no further comments, please call the roll.
Director Holliday.
No.
Jones.
No.
Dobbs Smith.
No.
Weatherford.
Yes.
Garcia.
No.
Trustee.
No.
Mayor McCabe.
No. Ordinance fails. We'll move on to the old business, which was set aside for a moment, and we'll consider ordinance 021-37. Please exit quietly, as we still have other business to attend to. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules, to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Director Holliday, seconded by Director Trustee. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of suspending the rules to read by title only signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Council, please read by title.
Mayor, this is ordinance O-21-37, an ordinance establishing noise control for the city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, establishing a penalty for violations, repealing ordinance number 5003, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Director Jones, seconded by Director Dobbs Smith. And the staff report will be provided by City Attorney Mr. Albright.
Mayor, what I'm going to try to do is facilitate a discussion amongst the board members. I apologize that this may feel a little bit more like a work session than a board meeting, but this is law legislation that imposes penalties, and I want to make sure that the board is comfortable with what you are enacting. At your previous meeting, there was a draft of an ordinance that was brought to you, motion to adopt, and it was taken to the floor for discussion. That was tabled. During the course of the discussion, I was directed to come back to you with some modifications to that proposed ordinance. That was sent to you via email, which I hope all of you have a copy of in front of you, a red line version of that. My request is that we go through that red line version, agree on the matters that we can agree on, and if we can, we'll move to amend what is on the floor. If there are issues that are yet to be consensus to be reached, we can hold discussion and debate on those after the amendment is adopted. Is that fair?
Please proceed.
The first thing I'd like to point out, Mayor, is that each one of the areas, whether it's residential, non-residential, or a C1 zone, each had their own timetables, days of the week, and a decibel level that was involved. In order to simplify this, the daytime and residential, the red line version in front of you calls for 8 to 11 daytime, the decibel being 70 dBA or 80 dBc. I want to address two things there. First of all, in listening to the board meeting earlier this morning, it was pretty clear at the meeting last time that the consensus was 8 to 10, not 8 to 11. And so, for purposes of our discussion right now, let's assume that we're talking about 8 to 10 residential zone. We're not talking about construction. Take the fur off your brow. We're not talking about construction. We're talking about amplified sound, 8 to 10. And the other thing that I would like for the board to consider, we have two separate readings throughout this. One is a dBA, the other is a dBc. Those are weighted measurements on a decibel meter, things that I don't really understand. And the problem with not really understanding it is it causes confusion, not only for perhaps officers in the field who are called on to investigate these issues, but also citizens who are trying to monitor their own. So my suggestion to the board is that we have one reading, that we use the dBA number as the reading and the dBc be eliminated. Any objections to that? In the non-residential, the daytime is 8 to midnight. The decibel levels will be 85 during the daytime dBA. At nighttime, 60 dBA. One of the other things that we've done, we put 60 dBA as the nighttime decibel level in all zones. Even in our C1s, our non-commercial, we have hotels, we have STRs, which we've been dealing with. It's time for people to sleep. So the decibel level after 10 p.m. in residential and after midnight in all other areas is 60 dBA. There are some measurements that the police department was kind enough to take for us over the last couple of weeks. Ms. Morrissey is sharing that on your screen. I had previously emailed Excel sheets to you. This is a combined Excel sheet showing some of the readings from various businesses around town. As you'll note, the levels that were taken during business hours are within the parameters that we set within the residential being 70, non-residential 85, C1 90. So we got really, really close on our guesstimates where that was concerned.
There's one that's 96.
Mm-hmm. At the stage?
Maxine's.
Vaccines, yes. Vaccines is going to be an issue for us. We've got other issues to deal with there, but yeah, they'll have to comply. One point I will make, the average ambient sound level citywide was 40 to 50. 40 to 50. Ambient. Okay, so those are the highlights of the decibel levels. Now, if we can run through the text of the ordinance itself, looking at the red line version that you have, as previously discussed at the last meeting, the police department has acquired a couple of the decibel meters, but more will need to be acquired, and this new regulation needs to be passed out to the public for education. So I'm asking that the emergency declaration be removed. It will take effect 30 days after passage, like any other ordinance. Now, with respect to construction, this is Section 2A. There was debate at the last meeting. No consensus was reached. This may not be something that you are comfortable including in your first amendment that I'm going to hope that you make. But the time limitations on building construction operations between the hours of sunset and sunrise, such that the sound therefrom creates a noise disturbance that is plainly audible and disruptive across the residential or commercial property, except when necessary in an emergency to protect or preserve property, or when necessary in the public interest. If that's something that you want to discuss now. Any objection to that?
Is there any issue of common understanding of what someone says it's sunset and someone else says, no, it's not sunset till it goes all the way down?
Mm-hmm.
Look at your phone, it'll tell you sunset.
Yeah, that's an issue that November the 13th I will be concerned with. Opening day of modern gun season. You hunt 30 minutes before sunrise, 30 minutes after sunset. Yeah, I agree. It's a moving target. But there's also not a whistle blow at the end of the work day on a construction site.
I don't know. I just would like to know what residents think. Did anybody sign up to speak on this?
I think that there are, yes.
Oh, okay.
All right, I will move on for now. We've already discussed that in residential zones, it's going to be 8 to 10 decibel levels during the day, 70, nighttime, 60. Non-residential time limitations, 8 a.m. to midnight, a daytime decibel of 85, nighttime 60. There's no differential between weekends, weekdays, trying to keep it as simple as possible, not only for enforcement purposes, but for community and education and knowledge. C1, again, 8 to midnight, same as non-residential. Decibel, 90. Daytime is again 60 across the board. The only other area that was addressed with these changes had to do with what was section 4F, having to do with the entertainment venue downtown. That has been deleted. However, in its place, a new section 5, which contains exempted entertainment and sporting forums. Much like what you have in your current ordinance adopted in 2001, ordinance number 5003, which spells out specific destinations, specific buildings, locations that were exempted, just laying it out, plain and simple. Oaklawn Racing Casino Resort exempted during the daytime hours. During the daytime hours, not always. That's 8 to 12, just like the other non-residential areas, 8 to midnight. Hot Springs Convention Center, Banco ZK Arena, Magic Springs, Transportation Depot and Plaza, Farmers Market, and the amphitheater/outdoor entertainment venue located at the former Majestic Hotel site, should there be one there. After midnight and until 8 a.m., the applicable zone restrictions will apply. If it happens to be in a residentially zoned area, well, all of them are going to go to 60 because we made that simple. It's 60 across the board. So it's 60.
Brian, I have a
Yes, sir.
comment here. Should something be added about the city permitted events?
Yes, sir, it's in there.
I know, but should it be added in this section to be exempt entertainment and sporting forums or any other venues permitted by the city that have a valid city permit to operate as such?
Are you concerned about future venues that may come about?
Yeah, future venues. Or if the city wants to sponsor something that's not at one of these locations.
Yeah, the city-sponsored issues are covered.
Okay,
Yeah, that's section 4E.
okay. And I read that previously, but I
Yes, sir. If there are other venues that come forward in the future.
this can be amended?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Just like it
Okay.
is tonight. Any debate so far? Again, no emergency clause. It'll be effective 30.
Any reason to include the Hot Springs Country Club in section 5? Or not to?
For amplified sound?
Just thinking of their pool area, a wedding, a little band out there. There's a neighbor, there's homes right across the street there on the Country Club Lane. I mean, if they haven't asked for it, it's perhaps not been an issue.
I'm not aware of a request from them.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where and how does the new ball fields fit into this? Because the announcers are amplified.
Right. That would be sound generated at any public event which is sponsored, co-sponsored, permitted, or otherwise approved by the city. That's the city part. We can try to split hairs with, what is the A&P, what is the city.
I just wanted to make sure that it
yeah,
was
it's the city.
somewhere.
Yes, ma'am. Any other matters of question or debate?
Anywhere?
Yes, sir.
Section 6C,
New 6,
new 6.
enforcement?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Section C, nothing should be construed to interfere with the lawful activities of those city departments. I'm just wondering if we should say, or other city services. I don't know what else it would be. I mean, we've detailed most of our city services here, but there might be something else.
Okay.
I don't know what it would be. I don't have a specific example.
So if no one has an objection to that, we could strike the word "or" before bus.
Bus routes.
And then we will have a comma after bus routes that says, or any other city activities. Activities or services.
Maybe services. I said other city services. Or
City
suggested.
services. Any other comments before I ask one of you to make a motion to amend consistent with what's been provided?
Any other comments from directors?
Are we all good on construction? You kind of left that one a little floating.
I don't know. I mean, what I had, I mean, I think that was Director Garcia that I was kind of looking at, but I mean, it's sunset to sunrise. Now, making the motion to amend And approving the motion to amend doesn't approve the ordinance as amended. Okay, you can have as much discussion as you want after that. We're just trying to get to something to the floor that you can debate if you want to debate.
My question is, I don't know if my mind would change on anything after people speak. So if we do that now, and can we amend again, or?
You can. The problem with not amending it now is you don't know what you're debating.
Okay.
Yeah. And the speakers don't know what they're speaking to. So by doing it now, I'm trying to get you on the floor with the action item.
Okay.
What was tabled, I think we all agree, is no longer the
Right,
action item.
So, just clarification, you had changed that to 8 and 10 on residential.
Yes.
And at 8, on nighttime, that was changed to 10 o'clock also on
Yeah, 10 and
nighttime,
8.
right? The-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'll move the amendment.
I got one question. How are you gonna clarify sunrise and sunset?
That was what I asked.
I mean,
I mean, like, I pick up my phone, sunrise is 6:50,
understand.
sunset is 7:28.
I think those
You go
are
out there and
easily,
you go saying something to somebody and it's 7:15 and he picks up his phone, he says sunset's 7:28.
Right. You know, I don't want to speak for the police department, but I've prosecuted their cases for 22 years. If the speed limit is 35 and someone's going 36,
They're not gonna say it.
that doesn't mean that they can.
Yeah,
okay?
sure, yeah.
But it doesn't mean that they're going to get a violation.
and I think that sunrise and sunset are now more easily clarified
Yes.
than
I mean, if
as
you
they
got-
have been.
You got a mobile phone, it's gonna tell you
If
exactly what sunrise.
well, and the time of the complaint, if it's lodged, via phone call, is logged.
Mhm.
You know
Right.
the time of the complaint, you know when sunset was, you know when sunrise was.
I'm
I
all,
think it's-
I have no problem with the sunrise, sunset, but at the same time, January, whatever, it's January 20th, shortest day of the year, sunset's 5:35.
Yeah.
But you're 3 hours later in the summertime, so you get 3 more hours work or so in the summertime, yet people aren't going to bed at 5:30.
That is
You're
true.
not disturbing anybody at 5:30, so.
That is true.
You wouldn't think you would be.
But it is a
Anything else?
benchmark.
You need a motion?
I do.
I'll make that motion.
Got a
Make
motion
a motion
by
we amend, yes.
Director Weatherford to, what's the term, amend?
Yes, man.
Amend the motion consistent with the red line document that you've been working from.
We have a second to that? Director Garcia. We call the vote on that, as amended?
Well,
Please call the roll.
On the amendment.
On just the amendment.
On the
Oh,
amendment.
just
On
the
the
amendment.
Just the red line, to put this on the table, the red line
It's not
version.
approving the ordinance.
Just the amendment, okay.
Please call the roll.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Dobbs Smith?
Aye.
Weatherford?
Aye.
Garcia?
Aye.
Trustee?
Aye.
Holiday?
Aye.
Mayor McCabe?
Aye. Motion to amend has been approved. We're going to have discussion now with those individuals who had signed up to speak on this item. Let me find my list here, my roster. We have 2 individuals that have signed up to speak on this issue, and first will be Glenda Dunn. Ms. Dunn, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
My name is Glenda Dunn, and I am in District 5 at 789 Buena Vista Road. I do, sorry, Director Weatherford, have a big issue with the sunrise sunset because my particular residential neighborhood was one of the ones, the 8 that was approved under a PD for a quasi-commercial project that has been under construction for almost a year and a half, and they haven't even started the building. So I've been a year and a half listening to that construction, and I do not want to be listening to it at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Now, it's okay when I have to get up and go to work, but when I have a day off, I don't want to be woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning with construction. And sometimes sunrise is in 6, 6:10, 6:15. I'm fine if sunrise is at 8 o'clock or if sunrise is 7 o'clock or 7:30. But I think there needs to be a specific time stated so that if the sunrise is at 6:28 today and it's 6:29 tomorrow, I mean, we have something that we know is going to go on starting at 7 o'clock or 7:30 if we make a adjustment there where we can meet in the middle, so that I'm not woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning for the next 4 or 5 years while they're still trying to construct this property that's been going for a year and a half again. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
What about the sunset?
I don't have as much of a problem as the sunset because typically I'm awake when the sun sets, whether it be 8 o'clock or 5 o'clock. But when 6 o'clock is the sunrise, I do have an issue with that.
Any further questions of the speaker? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mark Toth, please come forward and restate your name, address, and district, please.
Mark Toth, 110 Montclair Lane. First off, it sounds like the changes that Mr. Albright has proposed and that you've amended, but I don't have a chance to look it over. It's not in front of me. I can't determine if what's written is okay with me, because I haven't had the opportunity to see it. I'm struggling to look through the old version, and no criticism, but I think it would be fair to say, look, this is an important issue, especially whether you exempt the downtown amphitheater, proposed amphitheater, from sound enforcement, and Oak Lawn. I mean, if you're going to actually list particular places you're going to exempt, the hours have changed, how you're going to read it, all of this. The public has not had a chance to see this. And I think you would want to be transparent. And I think it would be fair and proper to simply put this back to the next board meeting. Actually publish what you're going to vote on. Let the public see it so they can make an informed comment. If you are going to vote on it tonight, I want to say I'm vehemently opposed to exempting the amphitheater. You had a man stand up here and promise that you wouldn't be able to hear it across the street. And you're just going to write that man a blank check. He no longer, the minute you pass that ordinance, he no longer has to take any effort to mitigate the noise. That noise is going to reverberate up Park Avenue. You're going to hear it at your hotel. You will hear it at your hotel. There will be times when the weather conditions are right, you'll be able to hear it, Mr. Mayor, right at your hotel. Now, your guests may like it, they may not, depending on who's playing, but it will have an impact on this town. And the appropriate response would be to hold the person who came up here and made representations before this board with regards to that amphitheater to those representations. Far too often, representations are made to this board about a project and they aren't followed through with. And that's to the detriment of the city, and it causes problems ongoing, time and time again. You get complaints, you get law enforcement issues, and that's not right. It's not right to the citizens, and it's not right to the quality of life of the residents of this city. If you have any questions, I'll give back 30 seconds. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those. But again, I would urge you to table this so that we can actually look. And again, I'm not criticizing. It does sound like Mr. Albright addressed a lot of the things I was going to comment on in the original, but I can't tell because I don't have a copy in front of me.
Any questions of the speaker? Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there anybody else in the audience that wanted to speak on this issue that did not have an opportunity to sign up? I don't see any hands, so discussion amongst directors.
I would like to, I appreciate the comments that have been made. And since we're not using or going to implement the emergency clause tonight, I don't see a issue with tabling the vote till the next meeting so that everyone would have what we have now that's redlined. And that way other people could make their input known if they have any that's different than what's on here. So I'll move to table it for the vote till next
We got a
meeting.
motion to table. Do we have a second? Do we have a second to table? Second to table? No second. The motion fails.
Then I move to amend the construction time start at 7 a.m. as it is now.
I have a problem with that.
Okay, but is that correct that it's currently 7 a.m. in our current code?
The start time for construction
Yes.
is what?
7 a.m.
7 to 10, I think, actually.
Yeah, it says 7 to 10 in the current.
Where's but then we amend it to daylight to,
Yeah, the red line version.
The red line version.
She's talking about in the
I'm
existing.
I'm making another amendment to change that from sunrise to 7 a.m.
and I have a problem. You're making an amendment to do it to sunrise or sunset?
No.
We've already got that
Yeah.
in there. I'm making an amendment to change it from sunrise to state 7 a.m.
I have a problem with that.
Okay, prior to you having a problem with it, she needs a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got a motion or to amend the red line version for construction start time from sunrise to 7 a.m. Do we have a second on that?
Could second that.
Motion is seconded by Director Dobbs Smith. Discussion.
Well, the only problem I have with that is that you're not in the construction business, I am. And my guys want to start as early as they can and be done as early as they can. And I appreciate you wanting to stay in bed till 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. That's fine with me. But I have guys that are out there, and when it's 110 by noon, they want out of it. We had 2 people die this summer in the heat on the construction sites here. And I have a problem with that because my guys want to start at 6 o'clock or as soon as the sun gets up. And they're usually there at 6 o'clock, and 6:30 they're ready to roll.
The current
And
code
they want
is
to
7
be out there by
a.m.
2 o'clock. We're not working till midnight or sunset.
I'm just saying the current code is 7 a.m., so we're not taking anything back to what it is already. I didn't say anything about me being in bed. I'm respectful of, this is construction in residential
And that's where
areas.
mine is
Yeah.
mostly, residential.
Any other comments from directors? No comments? We have a motion and a second to amend the red line version to change the start of construction time from sunrise to 7 a.m. That'd be every day of the year. So please call the roll.
Director Dobbs Smith.
No.
Weatherford.
No.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
No.
Holliday.
No.
Jones. No. Mayor McCabe.
No. Motion to amend fails. So we're back to the red line version as amended.
Yes.
So now we need a
Can I,
process.
I guess I kind of have a question for both of you guys. So, is the bigger issue, because I absolutely get what Director Weatherford's saying, especially in the summer, but the one comment that we had was specific to weekends. So I don't know if that would perhaps be a solution that would meet both ends if that start time was different. I know it starts to add a little bit of complication because we're trying to make it really consistent, but it does honor people's weekends, but also allows a typical building week being weekdays that you guys can get rolling as soon as you can get rolling. So is that something that perhaps would meet in the middle, that we could have a successful amendment?
Are you
We
making
don't work
one?
weekends, so
That's what I was
that
gonna
doesn't
ask
bother
you.
me, but there are a lot of people who work weekends. Especially if you have, during the week, the 5 days of the week, if you have 2 rain days and you're behind schedule, you're probably gonna work a weekend.
Yeah, and I definitely get that. I'm just thinking, trying to, to kind of, and also not everybody works 5 days a week. Some people will have to, their weekend is a Tuesday.
Right.
But this is something that I think might appease most situations, and then will allow most construction companies to have their schedule and get going early, but also will give a little bit of latitude for people who don't have to be up so early. So anyway, I don't want to sit here and amend over amend, but this is, I'll be honest, for me, that was kind of a difficult no, but I absolutely agree, because I too have been up at 6 o'clock in the morning, believe it or not, working to stay out of the heat, so,
To
so
beat
I get
the
it.
heat?
Excuse me?
To beat the heat?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely,
Yeah, a lot of
including this
people
last
do.
week, so, so I
Are you
get that.
making a motion?
I think my question was more just to have a little bit of discussion, because I don't want to sit here and go through the roll call 100 times over, so we can nuance it, like if this is something that fits both of your arguments, then I'm happy to make the amendment that we have a weekend start time.
At 7, or is that what you're, I'll second it if that's what you're making.
I personally wouldn't have a problem making weekdays sunrise to sunset. Wouldn't have a problem making it so that weekends were 7 o'clock. I'm not gonna move it to 8, but 7 o'clock.
Okay, no, that's good. Okay, so then I will officially make a motion to amend the red line version to have a Saturday, Sunday construction start time of 7 a.m., but remain, weekdays are sunrise, sunset.
Second.
Can we
Just-
do that?
Yeah, we've got it. Clarification though, 7 a.m. to sunset, still sunset on the back end, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
So you have a motion to amend what's on the floor, to state that weekend, Saturday, Sunday, construction start time would be 7 a.m. to sunset.
I'll second that.
Everybody understand? Well, we have a motion
Yeah.
by Director Holliday and seconded by Director Garcia
Somebody not second?
to amend the red line version to include start time on weekends, 7 a.m., but a sunset as remaining as the concluding time. Got a motion and a second. So please call the roll.
Director Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holiday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. The amendment is approved. So what do we have left, folks? We're going to approve the,
Brenda won't have to get no earplugs.
Now we gotta,
Now you get to vote on what's on the floor is the
ordinance
red
as
line,
amended.
as amended, by the weekend start time of construction at 7 a.m.
Yes.
So please call the roll.
Director Garcia.
aye.
Trustee,
Aye.
Holliday,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Dobbs Smith,
Aye.
Weatherford,
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Guess that means ordinance is approved.
That's how sausage is made.
Yeah.
Ugly.
Thank you. So we're done with that. There is no emergency clause. So we've got 30 days from today for the police department to buy some more meters and to educate their staff and just a little training and education so they can apply this appropriately.
Yes, sir.
And ensure that they have a cell phone that tells them when sunrise is, sunset.
Or a farmer's almanac.
All right.
Commission schedule.
Well, we just concluded the two biggest items, and it only took us 2.5 hours or so. 3 hours.
Is that a new record, Mayor? Is that- Oh,
Got more paperwork around here. I gotta get my agenda now. Here we are.
That where we at?
Now we're back to new business again. We're going to consider resolution R21-139 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Resolution R-21-139, a resolution authorizing a City of Hot Springs employee COVID-19 vaccination incentive reward plan and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to
moved.
adopt.
Second.
Director Weatherford, seconded by Director Garcia. Our staff report will be provided by the very quiet, remote city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow.
Wake up.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I am still here. We're asking the board to consider a resolution authorizing the use of federal COVID-19 relief fund to offer a $300 payment to all city employees that chose to take part in the nationwide COVID-19 vaccination effort. Proposed incentive reward program will offer a one-time $300 payment to employees choosing to become vaccinated against the COVID-19 virus. In order to be eligible to receive the cash incentive, employees must present proof of vaccination by presenting their vaccination card to the Human Resource Office or representative. Additionally, the city's health plan administrator will be able to provide verification of vaccinated employees that was processed through our insurance plan. Excuse me. Arkansas Act 977 of the General Assembly in their 2021 regular session prohibits coercion of state or local employees into receiving a vaccination or immunization for the COVID-19 virus. The statute language goes on to state in Section 1, Para 2, Subpara B, the following. However, other positive incentives that are above or beyond any expected compensation or benefit of employment shall not be included under the term coerce, meaning the proposed vaccine incentive program would be allowed. Other cities and counties, along with the state of Arkansas, are providing incentives for vaccinations that range from lottery tickets or fishing licenses to cash payments. Tulsa, Oklahoma, they came out today with theirs. Their employees, if they get vaccinated by October 15th, will receive $250. And in addition, if they have a department that reaches 70% vaccination, every employee in that department will receive another $250. So they've got a $500 incentive. The lack of vaccinations across the state and our city continues to endanger the health and safety of our city staff as well as our citizens. Essential city services are strained to both direct and indirect impacts of the COVID-19 virus. We've had multiple city departments experiencing staff shortages due to COVID-19 with a direct correlation to the low vaccination rates being shown. The science is clear that the general public health practices like wearing a mask, social distancing, practicing good personal hygiene all help slow the spread of the COVID-19 virus. These actions, along with receiving the vaccination protections, will reduce the adverse impact on our city operations and help reduce hospitalizations along with the return to normal activities. The City of Hot Springs received an allocation of $11.3 million as part of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds for 2021. The funds are received in split payments with 50% being allocated and the remainder to be delivered 1 year later. We received ours in May. The funds are to be used to support COVID-19 response needs, fill revenue shortfalls, and address the unequal impact of the pandemic on certain populations. ARPA provides each state and local government the flexibility to cover a broad range of expenses to meet local needs and make investments to improve the health of our community. The funds must be used by December 31st, 2024. Actually, I think that'd be committed by 24 and used by 26. Under the U.S. Department of the Treasury's Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, their interim final rule published in the Federal Register on May 17, 2021. Recipients authorized to use funds for the vaccination incentive programs. The interim final rule, we're still waiting on that. It hasn't came out, but we do know that we can use these ARPA funds for this type of vaccine incentive, reaching back to March the 3rd of this year. Prior to March 3rd, we would have to use general fund dollars, but that was primarily our public safety from January through March, and that was actually a low participation during that time. So the impact of general fund, I think, will be very low. Most of this will come out of our ARPA funds. And again, general fund balance will be used for those that are prior to March the 2nd. I'll be glad to answer any questions. Honestly, I'm not sure if $300 is enough to have an incentive program, but it's one I think we need to try. I think, if every employee were to take part of this program, we'd spend about $190,000. And I can tell you that we've spent more than that this year in employees being out with this particular virus. Be glad to answer any questions.
Director Garcia.
Will there be any information given to employees regarding if they've had COVID, that education about still getting the vaccine? I understood from Dr. Shelby with the health department that even though you may have already had COVID, that you still needed to get the vaccinations. And I don't know if everyone is aware of that in the workforce.
There is a waiting period, but we can certainly educate those with that information. Whether you've had COVID or not, the vaccine is the key.
Right.
Man.
Well, Director Jones.
Well, I wanted to ask the city manager, how much were you thinking that each employee should receive?
I landed on the 300. Looking at other cities and what they were doing, I mean, we saw what the state did. That didn't really work. A $20 lottery ticket wasn't enough to be effective. Is 300 the right number? I don't know. But I do know we need to offer an incentive to try to get more employees vaccinated. We still are at a low rate. I will say it has risen some, just because we've seen so many in our city family that have got the virus.
Yes.
But we are still at a low participation, and even though you're vaccinated, you can still catch the virus.
Lord.
But it'll keep you out of the hospital, and I think that's important.
Was there a cutoff time, Bill, as to getting the vaccination in order to qualify for the payment?
I did not put one in here, Mayor. I think if we needed one, we could go to the end of the year. That's typically what I think we'll see is trying to get as many vaccinated between now and the end of the year.
Yeah, and that's what I was concerned with, because those who may have recently had COVID, there is a wait time, and I didn't want them to be excluded.
Agreed.
Any further
Director
comments?
Jones, if you think that 300 is a low number, certainly open to talk about that. We've got 11.3 million. We need to use that for areas where we need it. But I don't think anything's more important than the health of our employees and trying to incentivize them to protect themselves.
Well, what made me ask that is after I heard about that $500 those employees were getting. Makes a difference when you get 300 and you could have got 5.
Director Trustee?
Bill, has anyone in our market offered an incentive of $300 or more that you're aware of?
I'm not. I know several cities have done some things. I don't know if Lance is in the audience tonight. He may have seen some others as he was doing some of the research on this.
Yes, Bill. In the Arkansas market
Right.
specifically, the vaccine incentives have probably not been up to that level. Generally, you're talking about in that some are as low as 50 to 75. Some have been up to 150. So really, you're not seeing the 300, but I know there are other cities that are looking at these opportunities. Some are also doing kind of a hybrid in what Tulsa is doing, but they haven't enacted them yet. Just discussion purposes.
I believe the Hot Springs School District was in the paper offering a $100 incentive to both employees and to the students who were vaccinated that were eligible. Is that right?
I believe that is correct.
It
Now, I
had
did
two
notice, I've had some discussion with some teachers that I believe they would receive several $1,000s in funds as they work through the COVID pandemic. So I don't know that you can compare what we're doing with what's happening in the education field.
Hey, Bill, it's Lance again. What he's talking about is premium pay. Premium pay is also something basically incentivize people that have worked throughout the pandemic. Other cities have done premium pay, big dollars in the state, but not specific to vaccine incentives. So they kind of have done two different programs, premium pay and vaccine incentive.
Well, we did premium pay last year. Is that not correct? Before I came on the board?
No, sir.
Yeah.
No. Not for COVID.
Well, not for COVID, but it was to reward the employees who had worked through COVID, worked through the year, had not.
I'll defer to Mr. Burr. I don't believe that's correct, but.
No, we have not had a premium pay for the employees.
They did not receive a
some
bonus payment in December?
That was everybody, a regular bonus.
That's right. That was everybody. That was every city employee. It had nothing to do with COVID.
It had nothing to do with COVID.
But it was as a reward for working through the pandemic, as I understood it, as I read it. I wasn't on the board at that time.
What's our rate of vaccination? Do you know with city employees?
It depends on the departments, but we think we're somewhere around 30 to 32%. We don't really have a gauge on it, Carol, or Director Weatherford.
Director Garcia?
The city employees were deemed required employees, and the biggest part of our city employees cannot be separated to work from home. There are a few that were made provisions to do that, but when the law enforcement, the fire department, all of these utilities and water employees, they are in contact with other people as part of their job all the time. And I see that is a higher risk. And I don't have any problem with the $300 or more if that's deemed necessary. Tyson came out with last week with 200 or 250, I think, and they're in a plant that they already put plexiglass between people. So we've got a higher percentage that are at a higher risk just because of the number of people they have to encounter, and then ride when they're going to a job site or out. They're riding in a small area in the cab of a truck that they could infect other people if they're not protected. So I see that the type of jobs that the employees have warrant a higher incentive than maybe some of these others that could work from home. So I'm in favor of the incentive.
I think it's a proper use of the funds. The ARPA funds are there in part for this style of utilization. I think the 300 is a generous amount. I'm not certain that it will cause a person to run and get a vaccination. I certainly hope that it would. There's not one employee in the city of Hot Springs. I'm not even just talking about the city government. Within anybody who works, anybody who lives in our community knows somebody who has contracted COVID. And if you're fortunate, you may not know somebody who died from it, but many of us do know. And if that's not an incentive in and of itself, you know, I'm not certain the 300 will. But if to the degree that the 300 will cause people to go and get vaccinated, then that's money well spent. You know, we are seeing a greater number of Arkansans being vaccinated. We're seeing our community's numbers going up slowly, but they are going up, and so anything that can help maybe move that needle to increase the level of vaccinations is a good thing. So I'm supportive of the $300, and I'm hopeful, supportive and hopeful.
And hopeful.
Yes.
Can I, this is maybe a little unorthodox, can I ask a question of the department
Director
heads that are
Holliday,
here?
yeah.
Because you all have, there's several of you. Those of you, you know your staff. Is this going to make an impact? Is it 300 will, 300 won't, 500 will, 100 will? Like, for those of you who manage staff, do you feel that this will actually make a difference? Yes, no, maybe. We don't have to go into it.
From the police department standpoint, I feel like we've probably had some of the most hardline pushback, some of the lower vaccination rates. We don't have an accurate way to track it. We can't force them to tell us if they've been vaccinated. I believe our rate is potentially still around that 30%. I'm not sure. Do I want to see an incentive? Absolutely. If for nothing else, for those that went out there and got it done. So I'm absolutely all about rewarding them. I can't say that 300, 500, or 1,000 will push some of the hardliners to do it. But anything we can do, because I believe my department's been affected, I think I'm well over the 60 person mark as far as the people that have been infected over the course of this event. And I know what it's done to us and our capabilities to perform our duties at times. We lost a whole dispatch staff for a week. And when you're talking about 16 people, if you lose 4, there's a lot of overtime involved, and the city manager's absolutely right. We've paid out a whole lot more money in overtime and additional coverage than this incentive will do. So I'm all for an incentive. I just, in all honesty and realistically, I don't know if, you know, when you talk about those hardliners that have just push, I don't know what that'll do. But I do support the incentive, absolutely.
Well, and I can share that with other departments. We've had, you know, I've had weeks where we didn't have enough people on solid waste trucks to pick up all of the services that we provide. We've had weeks where we didn't have enough in our wastewater departments to be able to go out and manage some of the pump stations that we have on a regular basis, because we've had whole crews that were out. You know, and it's not always because someone has COVID. It's because they're in a quarantine situation because they haven't been vaccinated. You know, right now with the CDC guidelines, if you're vaccinated and you're exposed, you can still come to work if you don't have symptoms. And we've got those kind of individuals. They'll come to work. But when you go to the doc and you go, I've been exposed, I was in a cab of a truck with a guy that's got COVID, you're off for a couple of weeks. And it doesn't take long for that to take a toll on every department that we have. And I'm very proud of all the employees that have stepped up and have covered in these times when we've had employees out. We've had people on the back of garbage trucks that have never seen one before. You know, we're going to get the job done, and we've got the best staff in the state. I mean, it's bar none, and I believe they deserve premium pays, and that's a whole nother subject. But today I just want to talk about incentives, to try to incentivize them to take care of their health.
Thank you.
I think once the word spread, it's gonna make a difference.
All right. We ready to vote?
Yes.
Please call the roll.
Director Trusty.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted. We'll consider ordinance 02138, and I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules, read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion is approved. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-21-38, an ordinance authorizing a contract for services with High Impact Movement, Inc., waiving the requirements of competitive bidding and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. Mayor, please entertain a motion second to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. The staff report will be provided again by Mr. Bill Burrow, our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. It's getting late. I know that I've asked Mr. Amos Gray to be here with us tonight with some of his students, and hopefully he's let them go home and they're
They're all out here.
No, they're here.
He's going to sleep.
He's coming to your home, Bill, yeah.
Well, we appreciate that. Mayor, Mr. Amos Gray has a program that I've observed on several occasions, so has our chief of police. We've got a program with High Impact Movement that is really making a difference in some of our young people's lives, some of our most at-risk students, and he is doing a fabulous job. It's part of our overall crime reduction strategies that the chief and I have discussed on many occasions. But to talk a little bit about High Impact Movement, it's an open enrollment program that offers educational and life skills coaching to area youth and teenage individuals. HIM's mission is to engage, equip, empower, and expose the next generation of citizens to attain their full potential and guide them in achieving their goals. The main outcome is to provide an opportunity for youth to become healthy and productive citizens. The program is a school-based after-school and summer offering that is designed to meet the needs of individuals being identified as underserved, underprivileged by their school or family. No such program exists currently within Hot Springs and is being proposed to support local youth and empower them to grow into our city's next generation of community leaders and contributors. I've seen no other program like this anywhere within our city. It is absolutely a great program. The HIM program is designed to meet the human and developmental needs of our often underserved youth while assisting them with life-sustaining skills. Activities designed for this group of youth include life skill development, community service, character building, arts and culture, prevention education on the use of tobacco and other substances, one-on-one and group counseling, self-esteem development, youth development. There's an athletics program, academic enrichment, and other positive activities. They're located with the Champion College Community Center, the former Boys and Girls Club at Belding Street. This location is walkable for many of the neighborhoods because of the Hot Springs Creek Greenway Trail and accessible sidewalks. The facility has ample classroom space, work areas, and multiple recreation spaces, but I can tell you it's getting tight between Champion Sports and the number of kids that are in this program. I think the last time I spoke with Mr. Gray, he had somewhere around 65 kids that are different ages going through the program. Their performance goals of the contract for services will include monitoring academic achievements, their grades, attendance and behavioral reports. The participation in community service and volunteer opportunities will also be reported as the program evolves. This is an annual program of $100,000 over a year's time. There are deliverables within the contract itself. The payments are broke out in several different installments. We'll have a $35,000 the remainder of 2021 and $65,000 in 2022, which will be contingent on the 2022 budget. Some of those deliverables, as I've mentioned, are 50% participants will maintain and improve their grade point average as compared to their previous academic year. half of the participants will demonstrate an improved attitude towards school and scholastic work. Some of that will be anecdotal evidence by their counselors at school and the program staff. We want to make sure that the participants join and otherwise become involved in school-sponsored activities and their attendance records. They need to have improvement within their attendance records. These are all metrics that'll be in the contract with High Impact Movement. Again, I'll be glad to answer any questions, and Mr. Gray is here as well if the board has any questions for him. And sorry you had to stay late with some of your students, but I appreciate you coming tonight and all of the young people that are in attendance there this evening.
Amos, would you like to speak for a few minutes? Please come forward.
My name is Amos Gray, and I'm the founder and director of High Impact Movement. For the last 10 years, I've been in this city serving the young people, and I never dreamed of having an organization in the city, standing on the sidelines with you, Pat, those years ago. But we were blessed to start High Impact Movement in 2018, and from there, it just exploded. There's a deep need in the city. And the need is for young people to have a safe place to be, where they can grow and learn, have fun, make mistakes, but learn from their mistakes. There's a need in the city where parents can send their kids to a place they can trust, to people they can trust, and from people who have probably experienced some of the same things that, their kids are going through right now. And that's what High Impact is all about. My leaders are young people that, when I met them, they were 6th grade, 7th grade students. Some of them are here today. Mariah and John, y'all stand up. They were 6th grade students when I met them. They now are contract workers in the organization. And that's what we want. We want to build into young people so they can grow and begin to find employment and begin to really enrich themselves and be in a city where they can do that. And I just believe Hot Springs is that place. We don't discriminate from race, creed, religion, or sexual identity. We believe that all students have a chance and have an opportunity to meet their goals and fulfill their dreams. That's what High Impact is all about, and we got some outstanding partners that we work with, and nobody is ever turned away from High Impact in our after-school program or our sports programs that we're developing right now with Majestic. So I'll be willing to answer any questions you guys may have.
Mr. Gray, for some of your older students, I think you're also looking at some work opportunities and some workplace development as well. Is that correct?
Correct. One of the programs that I'm starting to tinker with right now is a workforce program by which we partner with some corporations, some businesses in the city that they would come in and share with our students what they do, whether it's construction or whether it's, law or medical or whatever it may be. But they come in and talk to our students, ages 14 to 21 is the age limit that we're going to break it off at. But we're trying to develop that because we want our students to know that there's employment right here in the city, that they can begin to work and serve right here instead of going off to Little Rock or to wherever they go, going to college and never coming back. We want them to go to college. We want them to find employment, but come back to the city and give back to the city that they grew up in.
Director Trustee.
Thank you for being here tonight and sharing with us. How are you funded now? How is the program funded primarily?
Right now, we're funded through some private donors.
Okay.
And also, we write grants.
Okay.
We have a partner in Conway that we write grants for a lot of the presentations we do in our schools.
Okay.
And some of that overflows into after-school program, but not much.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Garcia, you had a question?
Yeah, you had recognized 3 of them that you started with younger
Well, it was
and now.
just 2 of them.
2 of them.
Aaron kind of stood up there too, so.
Yeah, but you've got some others. Could your students and parents of
Absolutely.
students stand up and be recognized?
Absolutely. If you guys would stand up. So some of these are our students and some of these are our parents and
people that work in
Ken
the
and Linda
program
Anderson
and
are our
volunteers.
partners. Mhm.
Yes, and because you know, I wish we could do a lot more for the youth in our city, but I really believe in this program and believe that it's worth investing in our youth.
Absolutely.
Any other comments? Director
All I
Jones?
can say about it, you have to see it to believe it. They were down, they came to the center when they had problems where they couldn't use one of the two of the classrooms. And I says, "Where we gonna put that many kids?" He said, "Don't worry, don't get upset." He said, we'll, and boy, I mean, he had each group of them situated. And he went outside every time it was time for a student to leave and said something to the parent. And that, you really impressed me when I saw you doing that. Because, you know, after school programs, we've had them at Web Center for years, and the parents don't see the sponsors at all. The kids just run out.
Yeah.
Well, he don't let them do that. They have to wait till he see their parent outside and he talk to them or say something to them before that child leaves. And he's done a marvelous job with these kids. Then he had me at the ribbon cutting. And I hadn't seen that many. He didn't bring that many to Web Center. And I'm glad he didn't, because I would have really been out of it. But as much as we can give, I appreciate every penny that you're getting. You deserve it. You deserve more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so again.
Mayor, members of the board, if you get a chance, please stop by there. I just want to say the first time I was in there, Mr. Gray, those students, they came and sought me out to look me in the eye, shake my hand, and introduce themselves.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the things that really got me was the classroom tutoring that was going on in those 4 or 5 classrooms that you had. And then I just happened to be there, I guess, when their time was up, because they came out of there, went into enrichment, and some went over into athletics. And then those that were on that basketball court, they were grabbing backpacks and heading to those classrooms, getting their tutoring in. And that is a key.
Oh, yes. I know a student went from a D to A and B and made the honor roll because of the tutoring.
She did.
Any other comments? Director Trustee?
Yes, Director Jones, I was at that ribbon cutting also, and
Yes, sir.
I really thought HIM stood for high intensity when those children were all outside. So let me tell you, there was a lot of activity going on. I do have one comment. We were provided a copy of the contract, I believe. Yes, it's pages 54 and on. This resolution tonight is for a payment of $35,000, but this contract's in the amount of $100,000.
Yes, sir.
Is
It's
that
a $100,000 contract for over a year.
The balance, the,
5 would be next year.
65 is in next
subject
year's?
year.
Yes,
Dr.
and that's,
Trustee,
I just wanted to clarify.
and I will point out that is subject to budget approval, and the
Yeah.
contract spells that out in paragraph 11.
And that was it. It is dependent upon us having income to fund that
Yes,
next
sir.
year.
That's paragraph 11.
Now, it also talks about next year's 3 quarterly installments, January, April, and July. I'd like to push that January back just in order for you to be able to give us an interim report on activities. There are a lot of these measurements that are objective, but many are subjective too. And I'd just like to know that, I'd just like to verify the success that you're having. And it doesn't have to be like the annual report, but I'd like some update, maybe at our meeting, first meeting in January, and then we authorize that payment sometime in January. So,
Absolutely. I think that's fair.
okay.
And they've got all kinds of reports, because they had sent some, was it at the retreat, or one of
Right.
our meetings, they sent a lot of those reports.
Okay.
I think we can we not do like we do with Mr. Troutman? It's within the contract.
Will his report be shorter than Mr. Troutman's is from time to time? So.
So are we okay with the current wording of January 1, April 1, and July 1, or do you just want to make a change to January 15th, April 15th and July 15th, or?
I'd
you're
just like an
okay?
interim report. If you can do that in
Oh.
December, that'd be fine.
Okay, that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Just an interim.
Well, the students' grades are issued before the end of the year,
Before
right?
the end of the year, that's right. So
Yeah.
we'll have
So-
that measurement. That's
Okay.
correct.
I'm just going to make a comment. I've known Mr. Gray for a number of years. We met on the football field at Hot Springs High. We had different roles. I was a volunteer punter kicker coach, and I'm not sure what his title was, but he connected with the players in a different way that the coaches didn't connect. And coaches were coaching, and he was, building them up, building people up constantly. And it wasn't just the senior high players; it was those who were on junior varsity and the freshmen and that. And if a youth had trouble, Mr. Gray was a person who had a listening ear and provided counsel. So for him to evolve into this type of program is just part of his evolution to reaching out and providing service. All across the country, you talk about more, social style programs for those who are disadvantaged. This is a type of program that resonates and provides benefit to the community. These two little children sitting here, I don't know if I know another two children that could sit there for 4 hours and be so well behaved.
I know.
So whatever you're doing is working. So thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, I want to give a shout out to, I guess it would be, staff who developed this particular agreement, because the deliverables in it aren't just grades, aren't just showing up. It's actually looking at the, what can happen with the whole individual, the whole student. And it is, like Director Trustee was saying, some of them are very subjective. They're qualitative deliverables, but oftentimes those are the ones that will actually make the greatest impact on an individual. And so I appreciate that we are adding that into what it is that we as a city are valuing and what it is that we're tracking.
Yeah.
That's right.
And as someone who also runs a nonprofit with qualitative deliverables, it's not always easy to put on paper, but it's not impossible, and it's incredibly important, because that's, not everybody is going to get better grades, because they're just not.
Absolutely.
But they can become a better person, and they can become better prepared to be, highly functioning, participating adults in our community. And so if that came from your organization versus staff or whoever, but I just personally want to say that I appreciate that family component and those qualitative components are in the deliverables, because personally I find those to be more important.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Very good. Can you handle all this, Amos? All these compliments?
It's not me. It's it's my business manager, Ken and Linda. It's my wife, Carol.
Yeah, we can't leave her out.
All right.
She's really stuck by you through this now.
But it's Mariah and Jonathan, Corliss, Misty, Kim, Mary. It's those people that show up every day.
Well, we
have allowed me
appreciate you and your whole organization
Yeah.
and what you do for the community. So
Thank you.
are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Please call the roll. Oh.
I'm actually signed up to speak.
Oh. Let me.
Please, sir, with your permission.
Well, let me get it over here.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Because I did see your name there. I got you.
Did I sign up?
Chris Chapman.
Yes, sir. I'm going to take all 3 minutes because I'm going to brag. The city manager alluded that this is part of our strategic plan and overall crime reduction strategy, but that's not why we're involved in this. First of all, I'm going to tell you that this man and I have been friends for about 9 years now. And not only am I involved in the program now, I was involved in the program before the program existed. And I've seen what this program can do for kids. I have been there, I've seen it. Not only does he have a supportive ear, a listening ear, and kind words, when somebody gets out of line, he can also educate them in a way that others probably cannot. I have never been more proud of a decision this city has made than I am tonight to support this program, because I'm telling you, it's the right thing to do. We're involved with high-impact movement because it's the right thing to do, not because it's part of our strategic plan, not because of any other reason other than it's the right thing to do. And us supporting this program and at-risk youth and building relationships and providing opportunities, that is our obligation. That is our obligation as the servants of this city and this community. And I am proud of the decision. I am supportive of the program. I am supportive of this man, our friendship. I have the opportunity to sit on an advisory board, kind of a, what do we call it, mastermind? I'm not master at anything. I'm just telling you that right now. I can build a dang good house. I will say that. But, so we're discussing other ways to fund the program. This is a huge shot of adrenaline for the program. It will keep the doors open, so to speak, and be able to provide a workforce development program for at-risk youth that has not existed in this city. And it doesn't exist in a lot of other places. So again, let's be trendsetters and not followers.
Okay.
Amos has led us down a path that we have the opportunity to jump on that bandwagon and do some great things in Hot Springs. And if you don't think I'm on a soapbox right now, give me another 10 minutes and I'll tell you some more. But this is a fantastic program. Thank you for making the decision supporting this. I love this man and I love the program. So thank you. There you go. For 2.5 minutes.
And vote again.
All right. Thank you all. Can we,
I have one more back.
would you like to come forward, make comment? Please come forward. Tell us who you are, your name.
Hi, my name is Taylor Bedford.
Here, come up first. Okay.
Hi, my name is Taylor Bedford. I'm in the 9th grade. Pastor Amos is a good leader. Like, he teaches us things that we didn't know before. Like, I had really bad anger issues before I started coming to High Impact, and they've improved a lot. And I had a lot of self-insecurities, and the workers at High Impact have helped with a lot of that too. So I would think that it's really good if y'all would help with things at High Impact, because the kids that go there, they learning things new every day. For study time, we read, we study, work at school and things like that. And it helps a lot. My grades improve. I'm really smart, but my grades start to improve even more once I start going to High Impact. So yeah, it does help a lot for the students that go there and for the adults that help at
Great.
Impact.
Very well. Thank you so much for coming forward and sharing.
You're welcome.
I'm going to tell this one story, man, then I won't say anything else. But I keep thinking about little things that it may not seem like a lot, but it is. There was this one little kid, and when they kids saw him coming, they got upset. He was so bad. And I guess it was his grandpa couldn't do nothing with him. And he would come to get him every day, and the grandpa would call Amos to help talk to him or something. Well, Amos said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of him." And he put him in this room near the office, and he says, "I've got this book, I want you to read it." He said, "I don't read books." He says, "What did I just say to you?" He said, "I said I don't read." He said, "Well, okay," closed the door and he left. So he came back, and I guess he had the book open or something. And he said, "Oh, you did?" "No, I didn't read it." And he says, "Okay, well, maybe you read it tomorrow. Come on, let's go. Time for you to go home." And he walked him out, but I think he was in there trying to read that book after you left him in there. I just say that to say this. She even knows she's smart now. That's right. That makes a difference. Thank you. I'm done.
All right. Call the roll.
Director Jones.
Aye.
Dobbs Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holiday.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our last action item of the evening is to consider ordinance O-2139. I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules, read by
moved.
title only.
Second.
Motion was made by Director Garcia, seconded by Director Trustee. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Signify by saying aye. We got aye. Aye. Let's do it again. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance O-21-39, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6069 as amended, relating to inoperable vehicles and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion if any.
Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Holliday, seconded by Director Jones. The staff report will be provided by Kathy Selman, Director of Planning and Development. Welcome again.
Thank you.
How it was
2 pages.
2.
Hey.
This is something that I think will help us in our efforts to improve the public health and safety of Hot Springs. Hot Springs Code, Title 17, Public Health and Property, in Article 4 has a section entitled Inoperable Motor Vehicles Code. And that goes on to say it shall be unlawful for any person to keep, maintain, or store inoperable motor vehicles, so on and so forth, public or private property within the city of Hot Springs. So that's great, but we have a lot of neighborhood concern about open storage of inoperable vehicles, such as travel trailers, which do not have motors by their very nature. And they aren't in such a condition to be inoperable or capable of being used as they were designed to be used. But we cannot address this by Title 17 if the vehicle in question is not motorized. So this is a very simple amendment. It will eliminate the word motor from a variety of locations within Article 4 in Section 17 and Title 17. And it would simply rewrite that definition in the property maintenance code that would say inoperable motor vehicle would now become inoperable vehicle. That would be defined as any vehicle not in proper condition to be legally operated on the streets of Hot Springs, or that does not have a current valid registration and or license plate when required, or if it's motorized and not capable of being self-propelled. So for purposes herein then, the term vehicle shall include any self-propelled vehicle, boat, camper, or trailer, used for transportation of people or cargo. So that will help us to cover some items that have thwarted our efforts to clean up in neighborhoods, something we get a lot of complaints about. So I appreciate your support of this amendment. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Selvin? Director Garcia.
A comment. Anytime that I've reported complaints from residents regarding the motor vehicles, the code enforcement and PD have been very prompt to address and had very favorable feedback from how both departments have addressed those issues. And for some neighborhoods, it has become a problem, but they've been addressed, and they do appreciate that.
Well, thank you for the compliment, and I'll pass that along.
Unfortunately, I don't always get to say that because my things fall into this. So I'm very happy to see this language because the example in question has come up multiple times in my neighborhood. So this I think is much needed.
So a homeowner, are they not allowed to have one inoperable vehicle kind of in their yard as long as they're working on it? Was that occurring?
We'll work with someone if they are for real working on it. Most people who say they're working on it would like to be working on it, but don't get around to it. And sadly, we have pictures that go back more than 10 years of the same vehicle sometimes.
There was a time when someone could have a permit to work on a vehicle in the driveway. That's not been in the code for several years.
Yeah, quite a while.
Thank you.
So, so do your code enforcement officers do this, or is this by somebody complaining? They,
Typically, it starts with a complaint. If they're on a block and they're responding to a specific complaint, then they will do the rest of the block for that same issue.
and I'm, don't get me wrong, I'm in total agreement with this, because that's one of the things that I ran his campaign before and this time also, and it seems like we never get anywhere with it. I mean, and I know it's tough to get them in court. I mean, we can write all the tickets we want, and they go to court and cry baby to the judge, and it doesn't ever happen. I've lived in the neighborhood where I live now 21 years, and as you go down Lakeshore Drive, there is a travel trailer, a tractor, a car, and a ATV. It's been parked in the same place for 21 years. And I don't know if he's ever been written a ticket or not.
There has been contact, I can assure you. I think I know where you're talking
And
about.
it's never moved. You know, so.
Any
Yeah,
further?
I think we, some way or another, we got to get more teeth in this thing.
Yeah.
Any further questions of Ms. Selman? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one individual that has signed up to speak on this matter. I guess Mr. Mark Toth believes he's that one individual.
Yes.
So please feel free to come up.
You all know who I am. I just, once again, I spoke against the rezoning. I figured I should take the time to say thank you, and yes, I do support this. This is an important change. In my own neighborhood, we had an issue with a trailer, and people called me, and I emailed Chief Chapman because it was on the street. Of course, the police could move on it much quicker than if it's on private property. It's just one of those quirks in the code, was overlooked. Planning seems to be catching a couple of those as times go on. There was one earlier where about multifamily home, what was it, a single family duplex and then an 8-unit home, and there was nothing in there for between 2 and 7. I would, once again, I support this, but I think there might be a need for the city at some point to have the code gone through with a little bit more attention, because there are a lot of these little issues in there. So thank you.
Thank you. That completes the action items for this evening. We're under board comment section. Board of Directors items for discussion.
Let's vote.
Well,
gotta vote.
why don't we vote? Then we can conclude action items. Any discussion amongst directors?
Just one comment. This applies to vehicles on public and private land. Does it apply to businesses as well? If they have vehicles that have been sitting there for 20 years? If they've,
Unless they are properly zoned as a junkyard.
okay.
What about car lot?
Unless they are properly zoned as a junkyard.
Okay, so it would apply to car lots. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Dragon.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Dobb Smith.
Aye.
Weatherford.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Trustee.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. This concludes the action items we will address this evening. Now we're under Board of Directors items for discussion. Any board member have an item they'd like to discuss?
Just
Director
announce
Garcia.
that Thursday and Friday in the Richardson new subdivision where development's going on off of Twin Points, they will be blasting at noon on Thursday and Friday of this week. So there will be dynamite.
Do you know the decibel levels?
I don't know those decibel levels.
They have 30 days to.
Yeah, they got 30 days.
Move quickly. All right.
It's a separate permitted
Yes.
action, because they have to get permitted from the city to dynamite.
Okay, any further items for discussion?
Yeah,
You said you weren't going to say anything.
yeah, you said you weren't gonna say anything, and I got something to say.
But
You
I
got something to
forgot
say?
Yes,
this
sir.
because I
On a
just
personal
talked to the
note,
city manager first.
I'm glad to see us pass the incentive pay for getting your shot. Anyone who doesn't go get their shot, I really feel sorry for you. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Director Weatherford
Uh-oh.
made the oh, we're going to break your streak. You should never say you weren't going to say anything else.
Well, you told me I couldn't.
Well, but you have a tradition, so it's 21 years of making the motion to go home.
At least second it. Come
Second
on.
it.
Second it.
Come on.
Second.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you. 3.5
Still
hours.
got a city manager.